There's simply nothing better than to climb out onto a rock and sit for hours with nothing in sight but sea and sky. Although the rhythm of the waves beats a kind of time, it's not clock or calendar time. It has no urgency. It's timeless time. Because I know I'm listening to a rhythm which has been just the same for millions of years. And it takes you out of the world of relentlessly ticking clocks.
Welcome to Being in the Way, the Alan Watts podcast. I'm your host, Mark Watts, and today we're going to listen to a very interesting and historic recording. It was made a few weeks after he moved on to the ferryboat Vallejo in Sausalito, California, and it's a unique talk because it's an experiment. It was one of the first talks that he did for the radio that was not recorded in a radio booth. In it, he talks about and celebrates his love of the aquatic life along the waterfront in Sausalito, and he talks about the different kinds of time. Time indicated by the lapping of waves versus the marching time of human civilization. This was also one of the first recordings that he made with a Nagra tape deck that the station and his supporters had bought for him, portable high-quality Swiss deck that we still have and use today. And it marks a departure for his entire Way Beyond the West radio series from a fairly reserved, more academic tone that was the product of the radio booth right next to the University of California, to a more casual and indeed experimental style. In this recording, he experimented with recording some of the sounds that he heard along the waterfront, the sound of the gulls, the lapping of the waves at the foot of the ferryboat, and the sounds made by the nearby harbor. This is one of the many recordings that you will hear here on the podcast and also on our Play channel. Play.alanwatts.org is a new streaming channel that we've set up where you can enjoy these talks in a uninterrupted and pure fashion without commercials or even an announcer. And you'll hear a rich selection of 50 or more talks at any time. If you're interested, go to play.alanwatts.org for a full selection. This podcast is produced in cooperation with the Ram Dass Be Here Now podcast network, and our music is by Zakir Hussain, courtesy of Moment Records. So here's Alan Watts in Love of Waters, one of the first recordings made with his Nagra tape deck, and the very first made aboard his ferryboat, the SS Vallejo, in 1963 in Sausalito, California. Love of Waters.
Do you mind if I talk for a while about something I love? About water and the ocean. Ever since I can remember anything at all, the light, the smell, the sound and motion of the sea has been pure magic. Even the mere intimation of its presence. Gulls flying a little way inland. The quality of light in the sky beyond hills which screen it from view. The lowing of foghorns in the night. If ever I have to get away from it all, upon life as a whole. In being able to stand aside from life and think about it, he put himself outside it and found it alien. Perhaps thinking about the world and objecting to its whole principle are simply two aspects of the same mechanism. The very words suggest, don't they? Perhaps we must object to everything that becomes an object. But aren't there also times when we speak of something that we know as a subject? Speak. All right. so problematic. Does it? I'm sorry. Well, is it? It's a bit, but sorry. The same as occupied and so look at the statements of different but all of us, like the finger thumb, was it? Is it? It's not our. We are. Of course. But I think I'm. Oh, um, no. It's in yes.
You've been listening to Love of Waters, a very special recording that was made in 1963. It was made on the waterfront, as you may have noticed during this program. And it's one of many recordings available here on the podcast and also from play.alanwatts.org, which is a streaming channel we've set up. The channel is also available on the Alan Watts app, which you can download on Apple or on Android. And it gives listeners a way to enjoy the programs without interruption and also a chance to support us in the making of these programs. Our thanks to the Ram Dass Foundation for its support through the Be Here Now podcast network, and to our engineer, Corey Leonard, who did the mix for today's program.
Every moment spent chasing becomes a moment unseen, unlived, unappreciated. But when you realize that this very moment, this breath, this heartbeat, is the only enough that ever existed, something inside you softens. You no longer fight the flow. You start to dance with it. The meaning of money is in its movement. It is not meant to be hoarded, but circulated. It is energy in motion. And when you let it move, it brings life. When you freeze it, it begins to die. The same is true for joy, for love, for creativity. These things only remain alive when shared. That is why generosity has always been the mark of a truly wealthy spirit. Because generosity is not about giving away money. It is about releasing attachment. It is saying, I trust life enough to let this go. And the universe, being an echo of that same trust, often responds in kind. Real wealth does not come from possessing more, but from needing less. You become infinitely rich the moment you stop trying to compensate for your sense of lack. You realize that all this time, you were never chasing money, you were chasing yourself. You were searching for the feeling of being enough. And the moment you recognize that you already are, the chase ends. This does not mean you abandon ambition or stop working. It simply means you stop confusing effort with worth. You work not to become something, but to express what you already are. That shift, subtle as it seems, transforms everything. Suddenly, your actions feel lighter. You stop competing and start creating. You stop worrying about outcomes because you understand that what truly matters was never at stake. The real purpose of money is play, to facilitate exchange, creativity, and connection, not to define identity. When you begin to treat it as play, you participate in the great rhythm of life without losing yourself in it. You can work hard, earn much, even enjoy luxury, but you no longer confuse the mask for the face. Look around the world and you will notice that the happiest people are not necessarily those who have the most, but those who are most alive. They use money like musicians use notes, as a means of expression, not measurement. They can laugh at losses, smile through uncertainty, and still trust the unfolding of things. You may not control every rise and fall of fortune, but you can always control your relationship to it. You can choose to see money as movement rather than meaning. You can choose to treat wealth as a guest rather than a god. The moment you stop believing that happiness lies somewhere beyond the next financial milestone, you begin to wake up You realize that the true treasure of life is not stored in banks, but in awareness, in the ability to see beauty in what is already here. Imagine living from that space. You still earn, still plan, still invest, but you no longer suffer through it. You no longer chase freedom, you express it. Because the free person is not one who has escaped the system, but one who no longer believes it defines them. Wealth and freedom are not opposites. They only appear that way when you forget who you are. When you remember, everything becomes simple. You earn when you need to, you rest when you can, and you allow life to unfold in its rhythm. And then, quite mysteriously, abundance finds its way back to you. Not because you demanded it, but because you finally stopped blocking it. You stopped clutching at life and started trusting it. The fool chases freedom through control. The wise simply realize that control was never needed. And in that realization, you discover the most profound truth of all. You were never meant to be rich. You were meant to be free. They guide your choices, shape your dreams, and limit your joy. But fear is not truth. It is imagination without awareness. The mind projects its doubts into the future, forgetting that the present moment contains no threat. When you bring awareness back to now, fear dissolves like mist in sunlight. And finally, there is the place of achievement, the grand illusion that you must earn your right to exist. From childhood, you were taught that success is the price of worthiness. You were told that meaning is found in doing more, having more, becoming more, but this endless striving leaves you exhausted and hollow. For every mountain you climb, another appears. Every goal achieved brings only temporary satisfaction before the next desire takes its place. You cannot reach peace through achievement because peace was never missing. It was simply forgotten beneath the noise of becoming. When you live in these places long enough, you begin to forget that they are not who you are. You start to believe that comparison, control, and fear are the normal conditions of life. You even take pride in your suffering, calling it ambition or discipline. But there comes a moment, sometimes in exhaustion, sometimes in silence, when something within you whispers, there must be more than this. That whisper is the beginning of awakening. It is the voice of the true self calling you home. The journey back to your real nature does not begin by running from these places, but by seeing them clearly. Seeing the illusion is already freedom from it. The one who observes comparison is not comparing. The one who sees fear is not afraid. The awareness that witnesses the storm is not the storm itself. This is the essence of awakening. Not to become something new, but to remember what was never lost. As long as you identify with what changes, you will suffer with every change. But when you rest as the awareness behind it, you find a peace that cannot be shaken. The world continues to move. The body continues to age. The stories continue to unfold. Yet there is a stillness that remains untouched. That stillness is your true nature. It is not a belief or a philosophy. It is the very ground of your being. And when you begin to live from that awareness, something extraordinary happens. The comparisons lose their power. The fears lose their grip. The noise of the world softens into background music. You move through life not as someone trying to win, but as someone who has already arrived. You act, but without anxiety. You care, but without attachment. You love, but without possession. This is what it means to remember yourself. Most people will never take that step. They will continue to chase and collect and compare until their final breath. But you, if you are listening closely, may already sense that another way exists. Not a path that you must find, but one that reveals itself when you stop running. The moment you stop trying to become, you return to being. And there, in that simple presence, you rediscover the truth you had been searching for in every corner of the world. Your true self was never hidden. It was only overlooked. Like the silence behind every sound, It was there all along, waiting for you to remember. There comes a time when you grow tired of your own struggle, not because you've given up, but because you've finally seen through the illusion that there was ever something to win. You begin to notice that every chase ends in the same place, every success fades into the next desire, and every fear eventually dissolves into the air it came from. And in that quiet realization, something begins to awaken. You start to sense that freedom is not a matter of fixing life, but of seeing it clearly. When you see clearly, you no longer need to escape the world. You simply stop mistaking the noise for yourself. The mind will still produce thoughts, emotions will still rise and fall, but the difference is that you no longer identify with them. You begin to live from a deeper stillness, an inner clarity that watches the play of life without being carried away by it. Most people believe awakening is about adding something more knowledge, more practice, more light, but true awakening is the opposite. It is a gentle undoing, a falling away of everything that is not you. You begin to shed the unnecessary, not through effort, but through recognition. Like mist burned away by the sun, illusion fades the moment it's seen for what it is. You realize that you were never the restless seeker trying to become something more. You were the space in which the seeking was happening. You were the quiet awareness watching the entire performance unfold. Once this begins to dawn in you, the world starts to feel lighter. You no longer walk through life as if it were a battlefield. You move as if life were music, unpredictable, fluid, alive. You begin to understand that harmony was never about control, but about listening. The same way a musician must surrender to the rhythm, you learn to trust the natural movement of your own existence. The mind, of course, will resist this. It will say, if I stop striving, I'll fall behind. If I stop controlling, everything will collapse. But this fear is built on misunderstanding. It assumes that you are the one holding life together. In truth, life is holding you. The same intelligence that turns stars, that breathes your lungs, that beats your heart without your permission, that is what's living you. To fight against it is to struggle against your own nature. When you allow life to flow through you rather than trying to command it, something miraculous happens. Effort becomes grace. Work becomes play. Even pain becomes a form of transformation. You begin to see that everything that once felt like punishment was only life trying to teach you how to let go. The world becomes your mirror. Wherever you look, you see reflections of the self you used to believe you were. But instead of reacting, you begin to smile. You realize that everyone is caught in the same dream, trying to protect the same illusions. And compassion arises not as an obligation, but as a natural understanding. You no longer need to change people. You see that they, too, are being guided home in their own time. There's a beautiful simplicity that returns to your existence. You no longer need grand philosophies or complex practices. Presence itself becomes your teacher. When you drink tea, you taste life in the tea. When you walk, you feel the ground as part of yourself. When you breathe, you realize the air entering your lungs has already belonged to countless others before you. Everything begins to shimmer with the same aliveness that once seemed hidden. You discover that joy was never something to achieve, it was what remained when striving stopped. The same world that once felt chaotic now feels sacred, because you are no longer separate from it. You are not a visitor in this universe. You are the universe momentarily playing the role of a person. Many people spend their whole lives trying to find meaning. They ask, why am I here? But the question itself is the confusion. You are not here to find meaning. You are here to experience being. Meaning is not something given to you by the world. It arises naturally when you are present. When you are fully here, life takes care of itself. You stop living in the past and future because you see how unreal they are. The past is memory, The future is imagination, and neither can ever be touched. The only place life actually exists is now. This moment, simple and ordinary as it may seem, contains everything. All the beauty, all the mystery, all the peace you were searching for has been waiting here all along. When you live from this awareness, even the so-called dangerous places lose their power. Comparison becomes gratitude because you finally see that everyone's path is their own. Control becomes surrender because you trust the intelligence behind every unfolding. Identity becomes play because you know you are not the mask but the one wearing it. Distraction turns into wonder because every sound and sight becomes a reminder of your own presence. Perfection becomes unnecessary because you realize that the world was never broken. Fear turns into curiosity because what once seemed threatening now becomes an invitation to awaken. And achievement becomes expression, a joyful way of participating in life rather than a desperate attempt to justify your existence. When you live like this, there is no conflict between being and doing. You can act in the world without losing yourself in it. You can work, create, build, and care. But your peace no longer depends on results. You are free in success and free in failure because both are seen as passing clouds in the same vast sky of awareness. People sometimes ask, if I stop chasing, won't I lose motivation? But true motivation doesn't come from fear or lack. It comes from love. When you love something, you do it naturally. You don't have to force yourself to create, to explore, to share. Life moves through you as inspiration, not obligation. That is what it means to live freely. And as you rest more deeply in that state, gratitude begins to bloom. You start to see the gift in everything, even in loss, even in uncertainty. Because you realize that life's impermanence is not a problem to be solved, but a miracle to be witnessed. Every ending makes room for another beginning. Every change reminds you that nothing was ever meant to be held forever. In that realization, the world no longer frightens you. You can stand in the middle of chaos and remain still inside. You can watch the rise and fall of fortune and not lose your balance. You can experience pain and not close your heart. This is the strength that arises from awakening, a strength that looks soft to the world but is unbreakable within. When the ego finally quiets, you discover that what remains is love. Not sentimental love, not the love that comes and goes, but the boundless love of awareness itself, the recognition that everything you see, everything you feel, is made of the same essence as you. And when you live from that realization, every encounter becomes sacred. Every person becomes a reflection of yourself. Every breath feels like a prayer. In the end, there is nowhere to go. No goal left to chase. No trap left to escape. You see that the whole journey was a circle leading you back to the present moment. Back to the simple truth that you are, and that is enough. Freedom was never about breaking chains, but about realizing they were never real. And when you finally see that, you smile. You smile because you understand what all the teachers, sages, and poets were trying to tell you. That the self you were trying so hard to find was the one that had been listening all along. You were never lost. You were simply dreaming. And now you are awake. There is something happening all around us, though most do not notice. If you pay attention, you may feel it, a quiet vanishing, a fading of certain people from the common noise of life. Not that they have died, nor that they have left the planet, but they are retreating. Spiritually awake people are quietly disappearing from society. They are slipping out of the constant chatter, the endless demands, the ceaseless competition. They are not showing up in the same places anymore, not chasing the same prizes, not clamoring for attention in the same ways. And if you look for them, you may not find them in the crowds, for they have stepped to the side. They are withdrawing, but not out of defeat. They are retreating because they have seen something. And once you have seen, you cannot go back to blindness. What they have seen is the machinery of illusion. They have looked at the game of life that everyone seems to play so seriously, the race for wealth, status, recognition, and they have realized it is not reality at all, but a performance. A grand carnival, a masquerade, in which people wear costumes so long they forget who they really are. The spiritually awake have glimpsed the absurdity. They have seen the frantic striving for what never satisfies. They have seen the way people cling to identities, to possessions, to reputations, as though these could secure them against death. And once this is seen, the game loses its grip. Imagine you are in a theater, watching a play, and suddenly you notice the wires that hold the scenery, the lights that create the illusions, the actors reading their lines. You cannot unsee it. The drama no longer fools you. You may still watch, you may still enjoy the story, but you no longer confuse it for truth. That is what happens when one awakens. And so they step back. To those still asleep, this looks like disappearance. They see someone no longer interested in chasing promotions, no longer caught up in gossip, no longer glued to the endless news cycle, and they think something has gone wrong. They whisper, "He has lost ambition, she has lost her spark." But what has been lost is not life, it is the lie about life. The spiritually awake are not absent because they lack vitality. They are absent because they no longer feed the machine that drains vitality. They are disappearing, not into nothingness, but into a deeper presence. Yet from the outside, it seems as if they have vanished. Society does not know what to do with such people. For society values productivity, visibility, and noise. It rewards those who perform endlessly, who stay busy, who keep running. To step aside from this is to appear irrelevant, and so the awake slip quietly into invisibility. But their disappearance reveals a deeper problem, that our culture cannot recognize wisdom unless it is loud. It cannot see truth unless it is branded. It cannot hear silence because it only knows how to listen for shouts. And so the very people who hold the medicine for a sick society are dismissed as if they had nothing to offer. Their stillness is mistaken for absence, their quiet for emptiness, their retreat for defeat. Consider the modern condition. From dawn until sleep, we are bombarded by noise advertisements demanding attention, devices pulling our gaze, institutions demanding productivity. Life is lived in constant interruption, a ceaseless tugging at the mind. The awake see through this. They see how distraction is not accidental but engineered. They see how the system thrives on keeping people restless, never still, always consuming, always striving. And so they walk away, not with bitterness, but with clarity. They no longer want to be cogs in this machinery. They no longer want to sacrifice presence for productivity or depth for performance. They realize that life is not found in the frantic chase, but in the stillness beneath it. To the unawakened, this retreat is incomprehensible. For the unawakened, life's meaning is bound to status, possessions, achievements. They cannot imagine stepping away from this treadmill, because to do so would mean collapse. To them, stepping back is failure. And yet, the awakened know that chasing endlessly is the true failure, because the chase never ends. It is like trying to catch the horizon. No matter how far you run, it remains ahead of you. At some point, you see that the pursuit itself is the trap. So the spiritually awake step off the track entirely. They are not running anymore. And because they are no longer running, they cannot be seen in the race. To the racers, they have disappeared. But this disappearance comes at a cost. For those who awaken are often misunderstood. Friends may drift away, unable to relate anymore. Family may criticize, thinking something has gone wrong. Society at large may ignore them. And so there is a loneliness in awakening, not because one is truly alone, but because the world cannot yet recognize the dimension you are living in. This is why it appears as though awake people are vanishing. They are not vanishing, they are becoming invisible to a culture that only measures what can be seen on the surface. And yet, notice the irony. The very qualities dismissed as irrelevant are those most desperately needed. For in a world that is addicted to noise, silence is wisdom. In a culture drowning in excess, simplicity is medicine. In a society built on anxiety, presence is liberation. But because silence, simplicity, and presence cannot be sold, they are ignored. And the ones who embody them seem to disappear. Think of the carnival again. Everyone rushing from one ride to another, desperate for the next thrill. But one person stops. They step outside the flashing lights, the spinning rides, the endless noise. They sit quietly at the edge, watching the spectacle with a soft smile. To the others, they have vanished. But in truth, they are the only one who has actually seen the carnival for what it island. So spiritually awake people withdraw, not because they reject life, but because they have found a deeper rhythm beneath the noise. They do not need to win, for they see there is nothing to win. They do not need to prove themselves, for they know there is no separate self to prove. And so they disappear, not because they are gone, but because society has no eyes to see them. When it seems that the spiritually awake are fading from society, what is really happening is not disappearance, but transformation. What looks like absence is a return to a deeper kind of presence. Just as the caterpillar slips into stillness and vanishes from the eyes of the world before emerging as something entirely new, so too do the awake retreat from the noise, not to escape life, but to rediscover its essence. They do not abandon the world, but enter into it more fully by refusing to confuse the surface spectacle with reality. For to awaken is to see that what we call society is largely a dance of shadows. The roles, the competitions, the ambitions are like costumes worn so long that people forget they're playing. And when you take off the costume, when you put aside the mask, the crowd no longer knows what to do with you. They say you have disappeared, when in fact you have returned to yourself. What disappears is not the person, but the illusion of the person they were pretending to be. The titles, the reputation, the image, these dissolve, and what remains is not emptiness but truth. This is why their retreat is so difficult to comprehend for those still caught in the performance. When you measure everything by visibility, silence looks like absence. When you measure worth by productivity, stillness looks like idleness. But silence is not absence, and stillness is not idleness. They are the ground from which all true life arises. To live in this way is to live like the deep ocean. On the surface there are waves, storms, and constant motion, but below there is vast calm, an unmoving depth that holds everything. The spiritually awake dive beneath the surface, not because they despise the waves, but because they have discovered that the real ocean is not the noise above, but the stillness below. And in this stillness, they rediscover a freedom that no amount of striving could ever provide. Society misunderstands this disappearance because it assumes that meaning can only be found in visibility. If you are not achieving, if you are not climbing, if you are not proving, then surely you are lost. But the awakened one knows the opposite. To constantly prove is to be lost. To constantly chase is to be trapped. To constantly seek recognition is to be blind to what you already are. Freedom begins when you no longer need to be seen. And this is the paradox. The more one disappears from society's games, the more one reappears in reality. For in letting go of the endless demands of becoming, you discover the wonder of simply being. You taste food without needing to share it. You listen to another without needing to reply. You see a sunrise without needing to capture it. These simple moments, which society dismisses as insignificant, reveal themselves to be the very heart of existence. The spiritually awake show us, often without words, that you do not need to conquer life in order to live it. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a dance to be joined. And when you no longer fight the rhythm, you find yourself carried effortlessly by it. This is what society mistakes for disappearance. It does not recognize the one who is dancing, because it is too busy struggling with the music. The truth is that their vanishing act is not an escape, but an offering. By stepping away from the illusions, they create a space in which others might glimpse what lies beyond them. Their very stillness radiates a quiet invitation, like a candle in a dark room. It does not argue with the darkness, does not fight it, but by simply shining, it reveals another possibility. The spiritually awake become such candles. They do not need to persuade, they only need to be. And though society may not celebrate them, those who come close to them will feel something different, a presence, a peace, a freedom that no advertisement can sell and no institution can provide. This is why their disappearance is not truly a loss. For while they no longer play on the surface, their being becomes nourishment for those willing to pause and listen. When you stop needing to be relevant, you discover your true relevance. When you stop trying to be someone, you awaken to being itself. When you stop struggling to hold on, you realize you are already held by the whole universe. This is the wisdom that shines through those who vanish. And so the question is not why they are disappearing, but whether you are willing to follow them into the quiet. For perhaps your exhaustion is not failure, but the first whisper of awakening. Perhaps your weariness with the noise is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of readiness. To step aside from the carnival does not mean the end of joy. It means rediscovering joy in its truest form. You see, the awakened do not disappear from life. They disappear into life. They are no longer separate, no longer striving, no longer fighting. They merge with the rhythm that has always been here, the rhythm of breathing, of wind through the trees, of waves meeting the shore. And in that merging, they are not lost, they are found. So if you cannot find them in the usual places, look elsewhere. Look in the quiet of the morning when the world has not yet begun its noise. Look in the eyes of someone who is fully present with you. Look in the spaces between thoughts, where awareness rests in silence. That is where the spiritually awake are. They have not left you. They are waiting for you to see. At the end, perhaps the most beautiful truth is that what we call disappearing is simply another way of arriving. Arriving at reality, arriving at presence, arriving at the realization that nothing essential was ever missing. The awake do not vanish, they return to the center. And in their return, they remind us that we too can step back from the noise. We too can rest in silence. We too can rediscover the freedom that was never lost. And when you begin to see this, you understand that their disappearance was not abandonment, but invitation. They have not left the world behind. They have simply found the world that was always here beneath the illusions. And if you are willing to pause, to listen, to let go, you too will find that what seemed to vanish was never gone. It was always here, quietly waiting in the stillness of your own being. It is a curious thing, this tendency we all share, the urge to hold on to people, to hold on to ideas, to hold on to the stories we tell about who we are and what the world is. We clutch at memories of the past, as though replaying them might somehow make them last forever. We grip tightly at visions of the future, as if our grasp could bend time to obey our plans. And yet, in all this holding, we discover a strange weight. Instead of safety, it gives us a kind of suffocation. Instead of comfort, it makes us anxious, always fearing the moment when our grip might slip. Why do we hold on so desperately? It is because we have been taught that to let go is to lose. If I let go of this relationship, I will be abandoned. If I let go of this belief, I will be adrift. If I let go of control, everything will fall apart. And so, with clenched fists, we drag the baggage of yesterday into today and try to pack tomorrow into the same suitcase until we are exhausted under the sheer weight of it. But life, you see, is not meant to be carried like this. Life is a river, not a stone. It moves, it flows, it shifts. And when we try to grasp the current, we only end up with water slipping through our fingers. The tighter we hold, the more we realize we cannot truly hold at all. Consider for a moment the simple act of breathing. You breathe in, and then you must breathe out. If you try to only inhale, clinging to the air as though to lose it would mean to lose your life, you will suffocate. The very act of living requires release. It requires the rhythm of in and out, of taking and giving, of holding and letting go. And yet, when it comes to our attachments, we try to live as though we can only inhale, never exhale. The result is the same suffocation, but this time in our minds and our hearts. Look also at nature's trees. Each autumn, they shed their leaves, releasing what no longer serves them. They do not argue with the season. They do not cling to what has had its time. And because they let go, they are renewed. Spring comes and new leaves burst forth. Imagine if the tree resisted. Imagine if it gripped every leaf in panic, crying, "I cannot let this one go. It is mine. It defines me." What would happen? The tree would rot, unable to grow, unable to flourish. It is only in release that life finds its rhythm. But we, unlike the tree, tell ourselves stories. We imagine that if we let go, we will fall into emptiness. We imagine we are separate little beings standing against the tide of existence, and that if we do not hold on, the tide will wash us away. And so we resist, and we resist until the struggle becomes unbearable. Think of how we hold on to relationships that have already ended in spirit, afraid of the silence that might follow. We hold on to old identities. I am this kind of person. I cannot change. I must always live this way, even when the skin has grown too tight, like clothes from childhood that no longer fit. We hold on to resentments, to grievances, to past mistakes, dragging them behind us like heavy stones, all the while wondering why we feel so tired. But the truth is, letting go is not the opposite of love, nor the opposite of care. To let go is not to reject. It is to recognize the natural movement of things, just as waves rise and fall, just as days begin and end, just as lives appear and dissolve. So too does every form, every moment, follow the rhythm of arising and passing. To resist this rhythm is to resist life itself. It is like trying to stop a river with your hands. You may feel, for a brief instant, that you are succeeding, but soon the current pushes past, stronger than your grip, indifferent to your effort. And then you are left exhausted while the river flows on. But why do we resist so fiercely? Because we mistake holding for control. We believe that if we grip tightly enough, we can preserve what we love, secure what we fear to lose, or shape the future to our design. And yet, have you noticed? The things we cling to most fiercely are often the very ones that slip away. Think of the lover smothered by another's insecurity, who leaves not because of lack of love, but because they cannot breathe under the grip. Think of the person so obsessed with controlling every detail of their life that they leave no room for surprise, no room for spontaneity, and so they find themselves trapped in the very order they desired. Think of the one who cannot release the memory of a wound, and so carries it, reliving the pain again and again, as though it were happening now. In all of this, the fear of letting go is the fear of death in miniature. For to let go is to allow something to end, to allow a moment to pass, a form to dissolve, a self to change. And because we fear the great death, the dissolution of our own body, our own ego, we fear all the little deaths along the way. We imagine that by holding on, we can resist the great tide, keep ourselves intact, but in truth, it is the clinging that breaks us. You may notice this in the smallest of things. Try to hold water in a tight fist, and it escapes. Hold it gently, with an open palm, and it rests with you for a while. Try to clutch at love, and it suffocates. Let it breathe, and it grows. Try to force your life into rigid certainty, and it rebels. Allow it to flow, and it carries you further than you could have planned. So the problem is not that life takes things away. The problem is that we refuse to see that life is always taking and giving, always flowing, always changing. To demand permanence in a world of movement is to fight against the very essence of what is. The suffering of holding on is not only in the loss itself, but in the constant tension, the vigilance, the anxiety of guarding what cannot be guarded. Like a man clutching a rope that is fraying in his hands, we exhaust ourselves trying to prevent the inevitable. And in doing so, we miss the beauty of what is still here, still alive, still present. And so, you may notice, fear grows not from reality itself, but from the stories we weave. If I let this go, I will be nothing. If I release control, life will collapse. These are shadows of thought, not truths. For in fact, you are already letting go in every moment. You let go of each breath, or you would die. You let go of each moment, or time would freeze. You let go of sleep each morning, or the day could never begin. Letting go is already the rhythm of your being. You cannot resist it forever. You can only blind yourself to it. The great paradox is that by clinging, you do not preserve life, you smother it. By resisting change, you do not secure safety, you create fear. By holding on, you do not keep things as they are, you hasten their decay. And so, we must see clearly, the fear of letting go is born from an illusion, the illusion that we are separate from the flow, that life is something happening to us rather than as us. But once you see that you are the river itself, the need to clutch at each drop begins to fade. The beginning of wisdom is to see the cost of holding on, to see that it is not safety, but weight, not love, but suffocation, not freedom, but prison. Only when this is seen can the heart begin to loosen its grip. And so, as you sit here listening, perhaps you can feel in your own life what it is you are clutching. Perhaps a person, perhaps a story, perhaps an image of yourself. Feel the tension of it, the way it weighs upon you. Notice that it is not the thing itself that weighs you down, but the clinging. And see, if only for a moment, that there may be another way. If holding on binds us in tension, then letting go is the beginning of freedom. Yet, many hear this and immediately recoil. If I let go, won't I lose everything? Won't life spin into chaos? Won't I fall into nothingness? But you see, this is the illusion. For letting go does not mean falling into emptiness, it means falling into life. It means aligning yourself with the rhythm that has been carrying you all along. Think again of breathing. You let go of the breath not to die, but to live. The release makes room for the next inhalation, the next renewal. Imagine if you refuse to exhale, clinging desperately to the air as though your survival depended upon it. You would suffocate. The irony is clear. You live because you let go, again and again. This rhythm of release is everywhere. The trees let go of their leaves so that new growth may appear. The snake sheds its skin, or else it cannot expand. The earth itself shifts, quakes, moves, so that new mountains may rise, new valleys may form. To let go is not a failure of life, but its very condition. Now, Notice what happens in you when you release. Perhaps you have experienced it already. You cling to some resentment, some injury from the past. You replay it, you nurse it, you rehearse the words you should have said, and then, one day, perhaps out of exhaustion, you let it go. And what do you feel? Relief, lightness. The world, unchanged in its outer form, suddenly appears brighter. The sky seems wider, the air easier to breathe. Nothing has changed but the grip of your hand, and in that small gesture, everything is transformed. So letting go is not loss, but transformation. It is not the end of love, but the beginning of freedom within love. For when you hold someone too tightly, you do not love them, you possess them. And possession strangles. To love is to let another be, to allow them the freedom of their own movement, their own becoming. And when you grant this, you discover something extraordinary, that love does not vanish when released. It grows, it deepens, it breathes. Letting go of control is much the same. You may imagine that unless you manage every detail, life will collapse into disorder. But in truth, life is already happening without your command. Your heart beats without your orders, your cells divide, your blood flows, your breath moves, the earth spins, the stars burn, all without your intervention. Control is a story, a game we play with ourselves. Life does not wait for your instructions. So what happens when you release this compulsion to control? At first, fear, because the ego imagines it is the master, and to surrender is to die. But beneath that fear is a discovery that life carries you more gracefully than you could ever carry yourself. Like a swimmer who finally stops thrashing and allows the water to hold them, you realize you are buoyant. You do not sink into chaos. You float into harmony. Now, letting go does not mean apathy. It does not mean turning your back on life or abandoning care. It means participating without clinging, engaging without grasping. It is like dancing with a partner. If you clutch at them, the dance is stiff and awkward. If you collapse and refuse to move, the dance cannot happen at all. But if you allow, give and take, guiding and yielding, the dance becomes alive, spontaneous, free. So it is with life. You are not to be a puppet, dragged helplessly, nor are you to be a tyrant, forcing every step. You are to be a dancer, moving with the rhythm, listening, responding, trusting. This is what the Chinese call wu wei, not forcing, not straining, but moving with the grain of the universe. Now, one of the greatest fears in letting go is the fear of death. We cling to life, imagining that if we grip hard enough, we can stave off the inevitable. But death is not the enemy. Death is the great letting go, and without it, life would not be. Just as sleep is necessary to renew the body, so death renews the cycle of existence. The leaf falls, but the tree lives on. The wave dissolves, but the ocean remains. And so, when you let go in small ways of a thought, of a grievance, of a fear, you are practicing the art of dying. You are rehearsing the great surrender that will one day come to us all. And in practicing it, you discover that death is not destruction, but renewal. What falls away makes room for what is to come. Even time itself teaches this. You cannot cling to a single moment. Try as you may to preserve it, the moment passes. The laughter fades, the embrace ends, the sunset gives way to night. And yet, this is not a tragedy, for the very passing makes room for what is next. If the day did not end, the night could not begin. If the note did not fade, the song could not continue. Life is not in the holding of one instant, but in the continuous flow from one to another. So, letting go is not abandonment. It is participation in the rhythm of existence. It is to see that you are not separate from the flow, standing against it, but the flow itself. You are not the hand clutching at the river. You are the river. And once this is seen, the fear begins to loosen. Now, notice in your own life where this might be so. Perhaps there is a person you cannot release, even though the time has passed. Perhaps there is a version of yourself you cling to, though it no longer fits. Perhaps there is a fear you rehearse endlessly, as if preparing for it could prevent it. And see, just for a moment, what it would feel like to open your hand, not to push it away, not to destroy it, but simply to release. Feel the lightness in that image, the freedom. This is the invitation of letting go. And here is the curious thing. When you let go, what is real does not vanish. Love remains, but it is free. The self remains, but it is flexible. Life remains, but it is lighter. What vanishes is the tension, the anxiety, the weight of clutching at shadows. You lose nothing but your chains. So the practice of letting go is not about throwing life away, but about finally receiving it. For as long as your hands are clenched, they cannot receive. Only the open hand can be filled. Only the relaxed heart can feel joy. Only the surrendered mind can discover peace. This is why the sages and mystics, again and again, spoke of surrender, not as defeat, but as liberation, not as loss, but as gain. To surrender is to see that you were never in control to begin with, and that this is not bad news, but the best news possible. For it means you are carried, sustained, supported by something far greater than the little I you believed yourself to be. So when you are afraid of letting go, remember this: you have been letting go all along. Each breath, each moment, each night's sleep, you have already practiced surrender countless times, and each time, life has continued. The fear is a story, not a reality. And when you release even a little, you discover the great secret. Life holds you. The ocean does not drop its waves. The sky does not abandon its clouds. The earth does not reject its children. You belong always. And letting go is the way you remember it. So let yourself soften. Let yourself breathe. Let the clenched fist open. The guarded heart relax. The worried mind fall silent. You will not fall into nothingness. You will fall into everything. For letting go is not the end. It is the beginning of freedom. It begins quietly, almost imperceptibly, like a soft drift of shadow at the edge of light. A person who has always seen themselves as kind, honest, and good starts to make small compromises. Not out of malice, but out of necessity. A harmless lie here, a silent hesitation there. They tell themselves, this isn't who I am. This is just what must be done. And in that moment, a seed is planted not of evil, but of self-deception. No one wakes up one morning and decides to become cruel. The transformation never happens in a single act. It unfolds through countless moments when the truth of one's heart is exchanged for the comfort of being right. You see, the mind has a strange talent for justifying itself. It will twist, bend, and reshape reality until it can still look in the mirror and say, I am good. The descent begins the moment a person starts believing that goodness is something they can possess, rather than something they must continually rediscover. For when you claim to be good, you also create its opposite, someone else who must be bad. The moment you divide the world into us and them, the game has already begun. The darkness does not enter as hatred, but as certainty. The truth is, we become what we fear whenever we lose sight of our own shadow. Every human being carries within them both the saint and the serpent. But most people spend their lives denying this. They cling to the idea that only others could be cruel, only others could be unjust, only others could fall. And in that denial, the shadow grows stronger, unseen and unacknowledged, until one day it acts on its own. History, time and again, has shown this. Not through monsters who were born that way, but through ordinary people who stopped questioning themselves. A person begins to follow orders they disagree with because it feels easier than conflict. They remain silent while someone else suffers, convincing themselves it is not their place to intervene. Slowly, the conscience adapts. The voice that once shouted now whispers, and in the quiet, they begin to call obedience virtue. It is not that these people become evil. It is that they lose the capacity to see. Awareness collapses under the weight of justification. Once you convince yourself that your actions are for the greater good, almost anything can be done without guilt. Cruelty, when wrapped in purpose, can masquerade as righteousness. The human mind loves order. It wants to believe that if it follows rules, obeys systems, and respects authority, it will remain safe. But safety has always been a mirage. When a person stops thinking for themselves, when they surrender their inner compass to someone else's map, they are no longer alive in the full sense. They have become a fragment of someone else's idea, and yet you can't blame them entirely. Most people are not cruel because they enjoy it. They are cruel because they believe they must be. Under enough pressure, fear, or belonging, the line between right and wrong begins to blur. When your survival, status, or comfort depends on silence, silence begins to sound like morality. The mind says, I had no choice, but there is always a choice, it's just that some are more painful than others. The moment you avoid pain at all costs, you also avoid truth, because truth is rarely comfortable, and goodness is rarely easy. Look closely, and you will see that corruption begins not in grand betrayals, but in tiny moments of self-abandonment. You tell yourself, I'll speak up next time. I'll do what's right when the stakes are higher. But the soul doesn't erode in one collapse, it erodes in quiet increments. A man becomes dishonest the day he starts believing that honesty must wait for a better time. There is another force at work, subtler, but far more dangerous, the need to belong. Human beings will do almost anything to avoid feeling isolated, and so they conform. They agree to things they do not believe in. They laugh at cruelty to avoid being outcast. They obey the unspoken rules of the tribe, even when those rules betray their heart, because belonging feels safer than conscience. But the cost of belonging, when bought at the expense of awareness, is the slow disintegration of the self. This is why some of the darkest acts in history were not done by villains, but by people who simply wanted to fit in. They called it loyalty, duty, or patriotism, words that sound noble, but can hide deep fear. They forgot that morality is not obedience to authority, it is obedience to truth. When the crowd moves in one direction, the temptation to follow is overwhelming. The human mind, desperate not to stand alone, convinces itself that the majority must be right. It takes great courage to question what everyone else accepts, to refuse the comfort of belonging for the discomfort of awareness. But awareness is the only soil in which integrity can grow. You see, we often think of evil as a deliberate act, a conscious choice to harm. But most evil arises from unconsciousness. It grows wherever people stop noticing what they're doing, or why. It creeps in through habit, through convenience, through the dulling of sensitivity. That is how the good lose their way, not through malice, but through mechanical living. The tragedy is not that people fall, but that they fall while believing they are standing upright. The most dangerous illusion is righteousness, because it blinds you to your own shadow. When you believe you are unquestionably good, you stop examining your motives. You stop listening to others. You start defending your identity instead of discovering truth. And so, slowly, the person who once helped others begins to justify harm. They say, it's for their own good. The one who once valued honesty learns to deceive themselves. The one who once stood for compassion begins to believe that cruelty is necessary. And all the while, they continue to see themselves as good. This is the quiet tragedy of human nature, that the very desire to be good can lead to blindness. Because when you cling too tightly to one side of yourself, You create the very darkness you hope to escape. You separate the world into pure and impure, righteous and wicked, and in doing so, you build a prison for your own awareness. Every human being is capable of this. You and I are no exception. The potential for cruelty, deceit, and self-deception exists in all of us, but so does the potential for awareness, compassion, and truth. The difference lies not in what we are, but in how awake we are to ourselves. So perhaps the real question isn't, how do good people become bad? But rather, when do they stop being aware of who they are? Because when awareness fades, anything becomes possible, and not always for the better. If you look deeply enough, you will see that the struggle between good and evil is not a battle between people, but a conflict within consciousness itself. Every person is born with both the impulse to create and the impulse to destroy. The difference between the two is not in the heart, but in the level of awareness guiding it. When awareness sleeps, goodness becomes mechanical. It turns into habit, into performance, into self-image. And when goodness becomes unconscious, it easily transforms into its opposite. What we call evil is often simply goodness without light, action without reflection. It is the mind acting without seeing. And this blindness, this absence of awareness, is far more dangerous than malice, because the one who knows he is cruel may still awaken, but the one who believes he is righteous will never question his own hand. So how does one remain awake in a world that constantly tempts us to sleep? How does one live without becoming what one fears? It begins with remembering that no one is entirely one thing. You cannot divide yourself into pure and impure, as though light and shadow were separate entities. They are two faces of the same being. To deny the shadow is to give it power. To look at it clearly, to admit, I too am capable of harm, is to take its power away. This is the first safeguard, awareness of your own potential for darkness. When you know that you can be cruel, you also know when cruelty begins to rise within you. You can see it before it acts, before it speaks, before it finds justification. You cannot transform what you refuse to acknowledge. Most people, however, do not want to see this part of themselves. They spend their lives polishing the mask of goodness while the shadow grows behind it. They mistake reputation for integrity, image for substance. But integrity has nothing to do with how you appear to others. It is how honestly you see yourself. The second safeguard is the courage to question your justifications. The mind will always find a reason to excuse its behavior. They deserved it, I had no choice. It's for the greater good. These are the whispers of self-deception. Each time you hear them, pause. Ask, am I protecting truth or protecting my image of myself? Because truth does not need protection. Only ego does. If you notice carefully, you will find that self-deception thrives in haste. When you rush, when you act under pressure, when you obey without reflection, you create the perfect conditions for blindness. That is why all awareness begins in stillness. When you stop reacting long enough to see clearly, life reveals its patterns. You begin to notice the subtle moment when kindness turns to pity, when conviction turns to arrogance, when belonging turns to obedience. You begin to sense how easily the good heart can harden when it feels threatened. Awareness does not prevent darkness from appearing, but it prevents you from confusing it with light. There is also another force, perhaps the most powerful of all, that protects the heart from corruption: empathy. Not the sentimental kind that we offer only to those we like, but the deeper empathy that recognizes itself in others. When you can feel another person's fear, confusion, or pain, you remember that they are not so different from you. It becomes difficult to harm what you can see yourself in. This is why systems that seek to control people always begin by reducing empathy. They divide, label, and dehumanize. They make the other seem distant or inferior, so that conscience no longer interferes with action. But awareness reverses this process. It brings the other close again. It reminds you that behind every face is the same trembling mystery that looks through your own eyes. When empathy returns, morality is no longer a set of rules. It becomes a natural response of the heart. You do not need commandments to stop you from cruelty when you can feel its echo within yourself. The third safeguard is moral courage. Awareness without courage can become passive. It can see clearly, but still choose comfort over truth. True awareness demands the willingness to act when silence would be easier. It asks you to lose what is safe in order to remain whole. This is not about grand heroism. It is about the quiet, ordinary moments when integrity costs you something. When you speak up though your voice shakes. When you refuse to join in cruelty, even when everyone else is laughing. When you admit your fault instead of defending your pride. Each time you do this, you reclaim a small part of your freedom. The strength to do this does not come from discipline or ideology. It comes from humility. You begin to see that you are not separate from those you judge. The same forces that corrupt others live in you as potential. The only difference is whether you are awake to them. This humility gives rise to compassion, not the weak kind that tolerates everything, but the wise kind that understands. When you understand why people fall, you no longer stand above them, you stand beside them. And from that position, you can help. You see, it is not the darkness that destroys the world. It is unconsciousness. The good person who stops noticing, the just person who stops reflecting, the kind person who stops questioning. Evil does not need hatred to thrive. It only needs forgetfulness. But when you see something remarkable happens, you begin to sense the fragile beauty of human nature. How easy it is to lose balance, and how miraculous it is that we ever find it. You start to forgive, not to excuse, but because you recognize yourself in every fall and every redemption. If you can hold this awareness, you will see that the line between good and evil is not a wall dividing people. It is a thread running through every heart. The task of life is not to stand on one side of it, but to walk it, awake. And when you walk that line consciously, you discover a secret. The light that keeps you from falling is not perfection. It is honesty. The willingness to look within and say, yes, I am capable of anything, but I choose awareness. So in the end, perhaps good and evil are not opposites at all. They are the two movements of a single dance, the contraction and expansion of consciousness itself. When you cling to one and reject the other, you lose your rhythm. When you see both as part of the same whole, you begin to move freely again. The one who understands this no longer fears his shadow. He can walk through the world without armor, because he has nothing left to defend. He knows that monsters are not born, they are forgotten selves. And when you remember who you truly are, when you see that even your darkness belongs to the light, the monster dissolves. Not because you conquered it, but because you finally turned to face it.
You know, we have this peculiar habit of believing that we are looking out at the world. But did you ever stop to wonder who's doing the looking? Now imagine a mirror. A perfect mirror has no color, no shape, no agenda. It doesn't try to reflect, doesn't try not to reflect, it simply does. And in the same way, the world you see out there is a reflection not of what is, but of what you are. Not what you think you are, oh no. Not that polite little ego in a skin bag. But what you actually are, the whole works. The cosmos waking up and saying, so this is what I look like when I'm me. You see, it's quite funny, people imagine they are in the universe, like marbles in a box. But it's more like the universe is in them, poured through a nervous system and interpreted through a lens called eye. And just as your eyes cannot see themselves and teeth cannot bite themselves, you cannot see you. You can only see the reflections. the glint in another's eye, the twist of circumstance, the heartbreak, the laughter, the traffic jam, the falling leaf for you. So then, the question is not whether the world reflects you, but whether you're willing to see yourself in it. Because if the mirror is cracked, you call the world broken. But if the mirror is clear, suddenly everything is shimmering, dancing, absurd, divine. So, what is the world? Only your own face wearing 10,000 masks. And if you smile, it just might smile back. Now, let's be clear. You don't see reality. You evoke it. That is what you call the real world, hard, objective. Over there is nothing more than a grand conversation between you and what is. Not a thing, but a dance. Not a noun, but a verb. You see, a rock is not hard unless there's a hand to touch it. And the sun is not light unless there's an eye to behold it. Without skin, fire is not hot. Without ears, thunder makes no sound. So then, hardness, heat, brightness, and noise, all the qualities you take for granted as being out there, are actually the echo of your own structure. In other words, you create the sun. You create the rain. You create the distance between your chair and the moon. Because without you, there's no far or near, no up or down, no color, no time. It's all relationship. And when you begin to notice this, really notice it, the world gets, well, slippery. Because you can no longer say, I'm just observing. You're participating. You're part of the paint in the painting. You see, there isn't a world happening to you. There is only a world happening with you. A world that rises to meet the shape of your mind. So when you gaze out at the mountains, the cities, the clouds, the mess, the miracle, you're not just seeing the world, you're seeing your relationship to it. And so, if what you see is always cruel, always grey, always lacking, you must ask, is it the world that's dull? Or is it simply the way the mirror has been tilted? So here we are, you the observer, the one inside, peering out through these curious little holes in your face, called eyes, watching the world go by like scenery outside a train window. But here's the twist. You are not watching the show, you are the show watching itself. The separation between subject and object, knower and known, is a marvelous illusion, one that lets the cosmic dance feel like a duet, when it's really a solo wearing two masks. And if you try to find where the observer ends and the observed begins, well, you can't. They arise together, like a front and a back, like inhale and exhale. Can you have one without the other? You see, when you look at a whirlpool in a river, you might say, there's a thing. But the next day, you come back and it's not the same whirlpool, because there was no whirlpool. Only whirlpooling. So in the same way, you are not a thing. You are a process. A dancing of the universe at one tiny point, where it decided, I shall look at myself, right here, through this being. And that being, quite mistakenly, began to think of itself as an island. But, my dear fellow, there are no islands, only coastlines in motion, only the sea, in curious shapes. Now let's talk about mirrors. A mirror, you'll notice, is a strange thing. It shows you everything, yet it has no image of its own. It receives but does not cling, reflects but does not judge. It doesn't say, I like that face, but not this one. It doesn't try to change your hair. It doesn't hold on to yesterday's image or anticipate tomorrow's smile. It is simply clear. And so it is with the mind when it is not clinging, not grasping, not editing experience to suit its little story of me. The Taoist sages said the highest human uses his mind as a mirror. It grasps nothing. It refuses nothing. It receives but does not keep. When the wild geese fly over the lake, their reflection appears in the water. But the geese do not intend to cast a reflection, and the water has no mind to retain their image. Now that is freedom. But we, you see, we tend to treat the mind not as a mirror, but as a scrapbook. Snapping photos, clinging to wounds, comparing, editing, deleting, as if life were a story we're trying to get right instead of a song we forgot we were singing. But what if you stopped? What if you allowed the moment to pass through you like light through glass? What if you let go of the need to comment, to control, to correct? Then the mind becomes like a mirror again. And in that still, silent surface, you might finally see the one who was always there, not watching life, but being it. Funny thing about looking, the more earnestly you try to find yourself, the more you seem to disappear. Just try. Try to grasp who you are. Not your name, not your profession, not your thoughts or your opinions. Those are like clothes on a hanger. What happens if you go behind the mask? Deeper. Beneath the bones, under the breath, behind the watcher of your thoughts, there's no one there, is there? And yet something is. It watches without comment. It feels but doesn't flinch. It is there when you are 5 and still there when you're 50. But it has no age, no face, no voice. It just is. You say, I think. But can you find the thinker? You say, I feel. But where is the feeler? The more you look, the more you see that the one searching is also the thing being searched for, like trying to bite your own teeth. And this isn't a failure, it's the very joke. The divine prank. The universe pretending not to know itself so it can play at finding out. The self is not a thing inside a body, peering out. The body is the world folding in. And what you call I is simply how it feels to be that fold. So you see, it isn't that you are in the universe. You are what the universe is doing, right here, right now, in this peculiar shape. There's something quite extraordinary about silence. Not the absence of noise, but the silence that's humming inside every sound. The silence that isn't empty, but so full it spills into form. Like the mirror that reflects all things, yet remains untouched. Like space holding stars, music, bones, laughter, but never clinging. That silence is not separate from you. It's not something you enter. It's what remains when the commentary stops, when the mind forgets to name, and the world forgets to explain. And suddenly, there it is. Not peace as an achievement, not stillness as an effort, but a kind of listening that listens to nothing and everything at once. When they asked Vimalakirti to define the void, he didn't write a poem. He didn't offer a theory. He said, nothing. And in that nothing, the room thundered. Because silence isn't the opposite of speech. It's the source of it. The mother of all words, the womb of all worlds. And when you touch it not with your hands, not with your mind, but with your whole being, you realize something odd. You don't need to fix the noise. You don't need to escape the chaos. You don't need to quiet your thoughts. You just stop fighting. And, like mist on a warm morning, it all dissolves, leaving not answers, not doctrines, but this strange echoing presence that has no name, because it never needed one. If you sit very still and just look not at any particular thing, but just look, you'll start to notice that there's no edge between you and what you see. At first it all seems very obvious. There's the world, and here you are. You, the observer, the looker, the thinker, the feeler. That old familiar sensation of being in here somewhere, peeking out through the eyes. But the more clearly you observe, the more this boundary begins to blur. It's not that the world disappears. Rather, it begins to echo you. And you might notice something gently startling. Everything changes depending on the mood in which you meet it. When you're tense, the trees look jagged. When you're at ease, even the cracks in the pavement have charm. You walk into a room expecting coldness and find coldness waiting. You expect resistance and somehow everything resists. This isn't mysticism or magic. It's participation, relationship. There's no such thing as a reflection without a surface to reflect it. No such thing as a smile in the mirror, unless there's a smile in the face that stands before it. And so, if what you see is always bitter, always broken, always lacking, the mirror is doing nothing more than showing you your own face. Of course, it doesn't hold the image, it doesn't judge, it doesn't edit. It simply reflects perfectly, precisely, instantly. You say, but I want the world to love me. Well, start the echo, because the mirror is not out there. It's here. It's everywhere. And it's waiting. No effort required. No technique, no trick. The geese fly across the lake and cast their reflection in the still water. The water doesn't plan to hold their image. The geese don't try to leave it behind. This is how it works. Everything moves. Everything reflects. Nothing clings. It is only when we begin grasping, insisting, demanding that the surface distorts. To be at peace with the mirror is to no longer require it to flatter, to no longer beg it to change. And when that happens, when there's no need for performance, you might catch just briefly the glimpse of something very quiet looking back. Not a voice, not a thought, not even a person, just presence. That is you. Not the you usually talk about, not the name, not the role, not the one who signs documents and rehearses arguments. Something deeper. The same awareness that was there before the name was learned, before the story began, before anyone told you who you were supposed to be. It's been there the whole time, silent, unmoving, unconcerned, watching the whole thing unfold like a dream. It has no opinion, it has no ambition, it simply is. And it cannot be seen because it is the seeing. It cannot be grasped because it is what grasps. It is what the Upanishads called Tattivam Asi, thou art that. The universe, all of it rises in you as sound rises in a bell, as light appears in the eye. You do not live in the world happens in you. When the wave knows it is the ocean, it does not fear crashing. When the dancer knows they are the dance, there is no need for applause. And when you remember not as a belief, but as a knowing beneath knowing that you were never outside this, never separate, never lacking, then the whole game becomes beautifully transparent. The music continues, the shapes change, the story evolves, but the silence beneath the music, the stillness within the motion, remains unchanged. That stillness is not a void to be feared. It is fullness. It is the mirror with no dust, the sky with no clouds, the awareness with no face. And if from time to time you forget, as forgetting is part of remembering, the mirror will still be there, reflecting. Because the face it shows was never missing, and the one who's been looking all along was simply the looking itself.
I think it is one of the most curious things about being human, that we can love so deeply and yet lose what we love so completely. You see, there is a strange contradiction built into life itself. We are given hearts that can hold infinity and yet bodies that are bound to time. So when someone we love disappears from the visible world, the mind cries out, how can this be? How can love exist without the lover? And the more we think about it, the more unbearable it seems. Because you see, we've been trained to think of death as the opposite of life, rather than as part of it. Now, what I want to suggest is that perhaps we have it backwards. When you look at nature, at the falling leaves, at the tides that rise and withdraw, or the clouds that drift and vanish into air, you begin to sense that disappearance is not destruction. It is transformation. It is change, yes, but it is also continuation in another form. When a wave rises from the sea, We give it a name. We say, that one there, that's my wave. And then when it falls back into the ocean, we cry out, it's gone. But the wave was never separate from the sea. It was the sea all along, playing for a moment as that particular shape, that particular expression. In the same way, when someone dies, we are not witnessing the end of something that stood apart. We are witnessing the return of the wave into its source. But of course, that doesn't make the grief go away. You can understand this intellectually and still feel the pain of separation, because thought alone cannot hold what love holds. Love is not in the head. It's in the whole being, in the way you breathe, in the way you see the sky, in the way you remember their voice. So even when you understand that the wave returns to the sea, you miss the sound of it crashing on the shore. The mistake we make is to think that this ache is wrong, that it must be fixed, overcome, or transcended. But what if the ache is sacred? What if grief itself is love's way of staying connected? You see, grief is not a punishment for having loved. It is the proof that you did. It is love without an object, learning how to move through the invisible. When you weep, you are still in conversation with what you think you've lost. The tears are the words that love speaks when it can't find form. So there's no need to rush it or silence it. The pain is part of the unfolding. It's how life opens you, how it teaches the heart that love was never something you had, it was something you were. And this is a most difficult thing to accept, because we live in a culture that treats death as failure. We hide it, we deny it, we dress it up in euphemisms and ceremonies, all to make it seem less final. But there's something to be said for looking directly at it, for asking, what is it really? What is this thing that takes everyone and everything without exception? Well, if you watch carefully, you begin to see that death is not a thing at all. It's not an entity that comes and snatches life away. Death is simply the name we give to one half of a rhythm, the other half being birth. You can't have one without the other, just as you can't have up without down or front without back. Life and death are like the two sides of a coin. If you try to keep only one, you lose both. So when you lose someone, you are not losing a thing that has been taken. You are watching the dance of existence. The same motion that brought them into your arms is the motion that carried them out. And in that sense, the ending is as natural, as lawful, as necessary as the beginning. You see, we humans are uncomfortable with cycles. We prefer straight lines. We like to start somewhere, move forward, and reach a destination. But the universe doesn't move that way. The universe flows in circles, stars turn, seasons turn, atoms spin, your heart beats, everything that lives moves in rhythm. So when someone dies, what is really happening is a continuation of that rhythm beyond the limits of what you can see. Now you might say, but that's no comfort to me. I want them here. I want their face, their laugh, their warmth. And of course you do. Love always wants to hold. But notice something. Even that wanting is an expression of the very life that seems to have been lost. It is life trying to love itself through you. So rather than suppress it, watch it, let it flow. If you allow grief to be what it is, without trying to rush it, something begins to change. Slowly, quietly, you start to notice that your loved one has not vanished completely. They appear in your dreams, in certain songs, in the scent of the air at a particular hour. They appear in the way you speak, in the habits you inherited, in the compassion that grew out of your pain. In fact, everything that moves you deeply is, in some mysterious way, their echo. When you begin to see it that way, death stops being an erasure and becomes a translation. They are still here, but in another language, a language your soul understands, even when your mind does not. And this is where real understanding begins. When you see that nothing truly goes away, things only change their form. That's all. When a candle burns, the wax melts, the flame flickers, the smoke rises, and yet nothing has been lost. The energy simply transforms. Likewise, when a person leaves this world, their being transforms into patterns too subtle for the eye, but still present in the great fabric of existence. Their laughter may now be the wind through the trees, their kindness the warmth of a sunrise, their spirit the space between your thoughts. The mind will still protest. That's just imagination. But imagination, you see, is one of the ways life perceives itself. It is the bridge between the seen and the unseen. When you imagine your loved one smiling at you, that is life remembering itself through your form. That is the eternal whisper saying, we never truly parted. And perhaps that's what death really teaches us, that separation was always an illusion. The space between you and the one you love was never a distance. It was a kind of dance. Two expressions of the same energy, meeting for a moment, recognizing themselves in each other, and then moving on. You can't hold a dance in place, but you can join it. You can feel the rhythm that moves through every life, and see that even endings belong to it. In that way, grief is not the enemy of love, it is love in motion, love returning to its source. So the next time you feel the ache of loss, don't push it away. Listen to it. It's trying to show you that you and the one you love are not two separate candles, but two flames of the same fire. The forms may change, the light remains. Because what dies is not the being, but the boundary. And what remains is everything that boundary once contained. And perhaps the most loving thing you can do for someone who is gone is not to cling to the form they once took, but to live so fully that life itself continues to speak their name through you. Because in the end, the one you loved is not behind you, they are within you. The sea has not lost the wave. The sea is the wave. And that means, quite literally, you have never lost them. You have only lost the idea of where they end and where you begin. If you stay with this, if you really let grief do its work without resisting it, something extraordinary begins to happen. The pain, which once felt so sharp and unbearable, starts to open like a seed cracking under pressure. And from within that brokenness, something alive begins to grow. You start to sense a quiet stillness beneath all the noise, a kind of spaciousness in which both joy and sorrow can exist side by side. Now, you may not notice it at first. It's subtle. You find it between the tears, in the small silences when you're not struggling against what is. But it's there, that presence that doesn't come and go, that awareness that watches everything without judgment, and you begin to realize this is what you truly are. Not the one who grieves, not the one who suffers, but the space in which grief and suffering arise. And when you see that, you begin to understand that the person you lost was never outside of that space either. They were in it, of it, just as you are now. The form may have changed, but the essence remains untouched. The trouble is that our minds don't like this sort of talk. The mind says, no, that can't be right. They were here, and now they're gone. But you see, the mind only deals with forms. It can't grasp what has no boundary. The heart, however, knows. The heart has always known. It beats to the rhythm of the whole universe. That's why you can feel someone you love, even across oceans, even after they've passed, because the heart isn't bound by distance. It speaks the language of connection, the same language the stars speak to the sea. But to hear it, you have to grow quiet. You have to let the noise settle. Modern life doesn't make that easy, does it? We're surrounded by distractions, screens, deadlines, endless noise. The moment silence appears, we panic. We rush to fill it, afraid of what it might reveal. But silence is not empty. Silence is full of everything you've ever wanted to know. It's where the truth waits patiently for you to listen, and the truth is this: nothing real can ever be lost. Only the illusions fall away. The roles, the bodies, The stories, they're like waves dancing on the surface. The deep ocean beneath never goes anywhere. Once you feel that, once you know it, not as an idea, but as an experience, the fear of death begins to dissolve, because you realize there's no such thing as gone. There is only change from visible to invisible, from sound to silence, from form to formlessness. And the one who perceives all this, the awareness itself, that has never changed. You see, the mystery of love and the mystery of death are really the same mystery. They both dissolve the boundaries of the self. When you fall in love, you forget yourself in another. When someone you love dies, you forget yourself in longing. In both cases, the you that is separate begins to disappear. And in that disappearance, something larger awakens the realization that what you called you was never alone, never separate, never apart. So grief, in its strange way, is a kind of initiation, a doorway through which the personal dissolves into the universal. It's not about letting go of the one you love. It's about realizing that there was never anyone to hold on to in the first place. Because love was never between you. It was within you. It was the very fabric of your being. And when you see this, you begin to love differently. You no longer love out of need or fear or longing. You love because that's what you are. You love without trying to possess. You love without trying to fix. You love as the sun loves, simply by shining. That's what all the great mystics meant when they spoke of enlightenment. It's not about escaping the world or transcending emotion. It's about seeing that everything, even pain, even loss, is part of the same divine play, the same dance of the universe expressing itself through countless forms. Think of a symphony. Each note rises, trembles, and fades away. But it's never truly gone, because it remains within the music. Without the fading, there would be no melody. Without silence, no song. Death, too, is part of the rhythm, not a mistake, not a tragedy, but an essential movement in the grand harmony of being. You see, we spend so much of our lives resisting the natural flow. We fight change, we cling to what was, we try to freeze the moment, but the moment cannot be frozen, it is alive. And to live fully is to move with it, to trust it, to let it carry you the way a river carries a leaf. When you allow that, when you stop clinging to the shore, something incredible happens. The river that once frightened you becomes your home. You begin to see that it's not taking you anywhere you don't already belong. It's taking you deeper into what you've always been. Now, this doesn't mean that the pain disappears overnight. You may still wake up some mornings with that ache in your chest, missing their voice, their touch, their presence. That's all right. Don't try to get rid of it. Let it be there. Let it remind you that you are capable of great love. Let it soften you, make you gentle, humble, human, because through that softness, the divine breathes. You see, life is not asking you to forget. It's asking you to remember differently. Not through clinging, but through understanding. To see that what you loved was never confined to that particular form, that it was the light behind the form. And that light, my friend, is eternal. Every time you laugh again, every time you notice the beauty of the world, every time you forgive someone or extend kindness, that's them living through you. You're continuing the story together, even if your roles have changed. Perhaps that's what heaven really means, not a place somewhere else, but a state of being where love and awareness are seen as one and the same. When you reach that realization, you no longer fear the cycle. Birth and death, joy and sorrow, presence and absence, they all begin to look like waves on the same sea. You stop asking, why did this happen? And start whispering, thank you for letting me feel this much. Because to love so deeply that it breaks you is to touch the infinite. It means you've lived. It means you've known the truth, if only for a moment, that there was never a separation to begin with. So when you find yourself standing by the window, staring at the horizon, wondering if they can still see. You know that they can, not as an observer out there, but as the seeing itself. You are their eyes now. You are their voice, their hands, their chance to keep loving this world. And perhaps that's why this video found you, to remind you that you were never left behind. You are life, carrying on its own eternal song. The ocean does not mourn the wave. It rises again. It always does. So rise gently, quietly, beautifully. Not to escape your grief, but to move with it, to let it transform you into what you already are, love made visible for a little while. And when your time comes to fall back into the sea, you will see it clearly. There was never any loss at all, only life, endlessly changing shape, endlessly beginning again.
In a very peculiar trap. We are convinced that life is a journey, a pilgrimage, with a serious purpose at the end. And the goal is to get to that end successfully, meaning with a certain sense of virtue, of accomplishment, to have achieved something, to have left our mark. But what if the entire affair is rather more like a piece of music or a dance? The meaning of a symphony is not contained in its final chord. The meaning of the dance is not to get to a particular spot on the floor. The meaning of it all is in the playing itself, in the dancing itself. So the question I'd like to explore with you is this: what happens when we stop taking this musical, dancing, swirling, star-like existence so dreadfully seriously? You know, we have this immense burden. We walk around with a constant low-grade anxiety that we are not doing it right, that we are not living properly. We are forever preparing to live. We think, I must get through school to get a good job. I must get a good job to have a secure life. I must have a secure life to raise a family. I must raise a family so they can get through school to get a good job. It's an endless cycle of purpose, where the purpose is always elsewhere. It's never right here. It's never now. We are like people reading a novel who are only interested in getting to the last page. And so we skim. We turn the pages frantically, missing all the poetry, all the drama, all the lovely descriptions, just to see how it turns out. And then when we get there, we close the book and say, is that all? And the whole point of the book was in the reading, in the living through it. We are missing the show because we are too busy looking for the meaning behind the show. We are like a person at a concert who does not listen to the music, but instead reads the score, checking for mistakes. The music is playing all around him, and he is missing the entire point. This is what happens when life becomes a problem to be solved, rather than a reality to be experienced. We build up this enormous structure of seriousness. We have to have the right credentials. We have to have the right job title. We have to have the right kind of car, the right address. We have to be seen with the right people. It's a colossal act, a performance, and we are terrified that the audience will see through the cracks, that they will see we are just making it up as we go along. And of course we are. Everyone is. The secret that nobody ever admits is that nobody really knows what's going on. We're all just playing roles. The doctor, the lawyer, the businessman, the mother, the father. They are roles, they are games. And games are fun, so long as you don't confuse the game with your fundamental reality. The problem arises when you forget you are playing, when you think you are your role, that you are the mask. Then the game becomes a prison. It becomes serious, and you have to defend it. You have to prove you are a good, serious, upstanding, purposeful person. But what is the alternative to all this seriousness? It seems frightening. If I am not serious, if I don't have a purpose, then what am I? I become a nothing, a washout, a failure in the eyes of the world. But this is where we have a profound misunderstanding. We think the opposite of seriousness is frivolity, shallowness, a kind of irresponsible laughter. But that's not it at all. The true opposite of taking life seriously is to see it as play, to see the universe itself as fundamentally playful. Look at nature. Does it look serious to you? Look at a kitten chasing its tail. Look at waves lapping against the shore. Look at the patterns of migrating birds in the sky. Do they look like they are on a grim mission? Do the clouds look like they are filled with existential dread? No, they are simply playing. They are expressing themselves. The universe is, at heart, a musical phenomenon. It is a dance of energy, and a dance has no destination. It is its own reason for being. We have this idea that everything in nature has a purpose. The bird sings to attract a mate. The flower is bright to attract a bee. The butterfly has eye spots to scare away predators. It's all an engineering project, but this is just us projecting our own purpose-driven anxiety onto the world. Why does the bird really sing? Why does the wave really break on the shore? Why does the star really shine? Is it not perhaps for the same reason a child sings or skips, for the sheer joy of expression, for the fun of it? We say the bird sings for a purpose, to survive. But I must ask, why survive? What is that for? To sing more songs, to have more babies who will sing more songs. You see, it becomes a circular argument. It's like saying the purpose of music is to get to the end of the composition. It misses the point entirely. The Chinese have a wonderful concept, Wu Wei, often translated as non-action or effortless action. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means acting without straining, without forcing. It is the way of water, which wears away the hardest rock by yielding. It does not strive. It simply flows. And in that flowing, it accomplishes everything. And they have another word for this attitude towards nature: purposelessness. Now, to our Western ears, that is a terrible insult. Purposeless? That's useless. That's a waste of time. But to the Chinese mind, it is the highest compliment. They look at nature and see it as purposeless. The mountains just are. The rivers just flow. They aren't going anywhere. They aren't achieving anything. They are simply expressing their own nature. And in that, they are profoundly beautiful, profound and trustworthy. We think trust means believing that nature will always give us what we want, that it will be safe and comfortable. But that's not trust. That is a demand. Real trust is like the trust you have when you throw a ball. You let go of it. You have faith in the process. You don't hold on to the ball and run to the other person and carefully place it in their hand. You throw it, you let it fly. Life requires that same kind of trust. It requires you to let go, to stop trying to hold everything so tightly, to stop trying to control every outcome. If you do not have this trust, if you do not trust nature, and by nature I mean both the world outside you and your own inner nature, what is the alternative? The alternative is what we have created. It is a world of total mistrust. It is a world where we feel nature has got to be watched. It has got to be controlled. We can't trust our own instincts, our own desires, our own emotions. They are too dangerous. They are too messy. So what do? We create authorities to manage it all. We create rules, laws, systems, bureaucracies. We create a world where the most important thing is not the living of life, but the recording of it. It is more important that your files are in order than that you are a kind person. It is more important that the university's records are perfect than that its library is full of inspiring books. We are so busy measuring life that we forget to live it. We become our own jailers. We are so afraid of making a mistake, of looking foolish, of not being serious enough, that we fence ourselves in. We create a life that is, as they say, all jail and no prisoner, a structure with nothing alive inside it. But life is inherently messy. It is inherently playful. It is inherently spontaneous. You cannot schedule a moment of awe. You cannot program a belly laugh. You cannot force a genuine insight. These things happen when you let go. They happen when you stop taking yourself so seriously. A true scholar, in the original sense, is not someone who studies to get a degree. The word scholar means leisure. A scholar was a person of leisure who studied things not because they were useful, but because they were fascinating, because they were delightful, They studied the charming irrelevances of life, the things that do not contribute directly to survival, but that make survival worthwhile. Poetry, art, music, philosophy, the patterns of stars, the shapes of shells, this is play. And if you do not have room in your life for the playful, life is not worth living. But, and this is a very important but, if the only reason you play is because it is good for you, because it helps you work better afterwards, then you are not really playing at all. You are just working in a different form. You must learn to do things that have no purpose. Pick up a pebble. Look at it. Don't try to get a sermon out of it. Don't try to make it mean something. Just enjoy its texture, its color, its shape. Just enjoy it. Do not feel you have to justify the moment by saying it advances your aesthetic understanding. Just enjoy the pebble. When you can do that, you become, strangely, a healthy human being. You become able to be a loving, helpful person. But if you can only do things because you are going to get something out of it, you are what I would call a vulture. You are circling over life, waiting to profit from it, instead of landing and joining the dance. So, the first step is to see the incredible weight of seriousness we carry. To see the structure of purpose we have built around ourselves, like a shell. And to begin to wonder, what if we could set it down? Just for a moment. What if we could, as the Chinese say, learn purposelessness? What would that feel like? It would feel like the moment you stop striving and simply listen to the rain. It would feel like watching wild geese fly and be hidden in the clouds. It would feel like watching a ship vanish behind a distant island. It would feel like wandering on and on in a great forest with no thought of return. Haven't you ever done that? Haven't you ever just gone for a walk with no particular place to go? You twiddle your thumbs. You hit a stick against a stump. You are in that moment a perfectly rational human being. You have learned the great art of purposelessness. And in that space, life stops being a problem. It becomes a song. And you begin to hear the music that has been playing all along. But this is only the beginning. We have seen the weight. Now we must look at the dancer. We must look at this you that is trying so hard to be serious. What is it? Where did it come from? And is it perhaps also part of the game? So we find ourselves carrying this immense weight. We are playing a role, and we have forgotten that it is a role. We have become convinced that the mask is our true face, that the part we play, the banker, the mother, the student, the failure, the success, is who we are fundamentally. This you that you take so seriously, this ego, this personality, what is it? Where did it come from? If you look for it, it's rather elusive. It's a collection of memories, a bundle of desires and fears, a certain pattern of behavior. It's a story you tell yourself and others about who you are. I am a person who likes this and dislikes that. I am someone who did this and failed to do that. It is a concept, a thought. And like all thoughts, it is fleeting. It has no solidity. You cannot locate it in the body. Is it in the head, the heart? The brain is an instrument, a fantastic computer, but it is not the operator. The eye cannot see itself. The tooth cannot bite itself. The thinker cannot think itself. This you is a vibration, a pattern, a whirlpool in the stream of life. A whirlpool is a recognizable pattern. You can say, there is the whirlpool, but if you try to grab it, to take it out of the river, you get nothing but a handful of water. The whirlpool is something the river is doing. It is an activity, not a thing. In the same way, what you call me is something the universe is doing, right here and right now. It is a temporary dancing pattern, a gesture, and like a gesture in the air, it is fundamentally empty. It leaves no trace. Now, this can sound frightening. The idea that I am not a solid, enduring thing can feel like annihilation. But is it? Or is it the discovery of your true, vast nature? You are not the whirlpool. You are the whole river. You are not the wave. You are the ocean. We are all actors in this fantastic divine play. And the problem is not that we are acting, the problem is that we are bad actors. We are method actors. We have gotten so absorbed in the part that we've forgotten the curtain will fall. We've forgotten the audience. We've even forgotten that there are other actors on the stage, and we think our role is the only important one. A good actor knows he is acting. He can play the part of a king with tremendous conviction. But when he walks off the stage, he takes off the crown and has a beer. He doesn't go home and order his family about because he was a king on stage. He knows it was a game. The whole of life has a similar nature. It is a drama. It is a play of energy. And when you know that, you can play your part with immense verve, with passion, with compassion, with everything you have. But you won't be deceived. You won't take the tragedies backstage. You won't cling to the triumphs as if they were your permanent identity. You see, when you don't take your ego so seriously, a wonderful thing happens. You begin to relax. The constant low-grade anxiety of having to protect this fragile fictional self begins to dissolve. You can afford to be more spontaneous. You can afford to be foolish. You can afford to make mistakes. Because it's all part of the play. A wave in the ocean is not anxious about crashing on the shore. It's what waves do. It's part of the rhythm. It will gather itself again. In the same way, your successes and failures are just part of the rhythm of your expression. They are not the final judgment on you, because there is no you to be judged in that solid, fixed way. There is only the dancing, the flowing. This is why the Chinese sages praised purposelessness. They saw that nature is not going anywhere. It is just expressing itself. A tree does not purpose to grow. It grows because it is a tree. A bird does not purpose to sing. It sings because it is a bird. We are the same. Our purpose is not some distant goal. Our purpose is to express what we are right now. And what are we? We are the universe. We are nature. We are that same energy that blows out the stars, that shapes the galaxies, that curls the waves. You are not a stranger in a foreign universe. You are this universe, and it is you. So, how do you live this? How do you stop taking the mask so seriously? You don't do anything. That's the great joke. You cannot try to be spontaneous. You cannot make an effort to be effortless. That is like trying to bite your own teeth. Or like a person hearing a funny joke and then stopping to think, I must laugh now to show I understand. The real laugh comes from nowhere. It happens to you. When this realization dawns, life ceases to be a problem. It becomes a game, a very serious game, sometimes. A tragic game, sometimes. But a game nonetheless, and you can play a serious game without taking it seriously. A good chess player is utterly absorbed in the game. He cares deeply, but he does not think. The fate of the universe rests on whether he wins or loses. He knows it's chess, so you can go about your life. You can do your job, raise your family, pay your bills, but you do it with a lightness. You do it as an expression, not as a means of validation. You work not because you have to prove you are a worthy person, but because the work is there to be done, like a mountain is there to be climbed. This is what is called working for the work's sake, singing for the song's sake. It is action without attachment. You pour yourself completely into the moment, and then you let it go. You don't cling to the result. A cat does not pursue a mouse because it has a philosophy of predation. It does it because it is a cat. It is totally absorbed in the pursuit. It is a perfect expression of cattiness. And when the moment is over, it is over. The cat stretches and goes to sleep. It doesn't lie awake wondering if it was a good cat, or if it could have caught the mouse more efficiently. It is simply itself. We can learn from that. We can learn to be simply ourselves. Not the idea of ourselves, but the living, breathing, immediate reality of ourselves. When you are no longer defending a fragile self-image, you become incredibly strong. Criticism doesn't shatter you. Failure doesn't define you. Success doesn't inflate you. You can flow with circumstances. You can adapt. You can be like water, which is soft and yielding, yet which can eventually wear away the hardest rock. This is not passivity. This is supreme intelligence. It is action that is in accord with the total situation, not just with your narrow, selfish desire. It is the action of the whole universe expressing itself through you. So you see, the answer to the burden of seriousness is not to become frivolous. It is to become playful, to see the cosmos as it is, a joyous, spontaneous, and yes, sometimes painful dance. And to see yourself not as a lonely dancer, but as the dance itself. But the dance has a rhythm. It has a certain pattern. And to understand that pattern is to understand the deepest joke of all. Now, having seen the weight of our self-constructed seriousness, and having glimpsed the illusion of the separate solitary ego, we are left with a question. Not a question to be answered, but an invitation. An invitation to participate. What is left when you are not busy building a monument to yourself? What remains when the constant narration in your head, the commentary, the judgment, the planning begins to quiet down? What remains is the experience itself, the raw, unfiltered isness of things, the feeling of the wind on your skin, the sound of a distant bird, the coolness of water. This is not a trivial reality. This is the fundamental reality. The world is not something you have to figure out. It is something to be tasted, touched, heard, and seen. You are not a passenger in the universe, being taken for a ride. You are the universe, experiencing itself. The eyes you look out of are not your personal possession. They are the eyes of life itself, looking out at its own creation. The energy that animates your body is the same energy that spins the galaxies. This is not a mystical fantasy. This is the most practical thing in the world. When you know this, not just as an idea, but as a feeling in your bones, your relationship with everything changes. You begin to see that life is not a journey with a destination. It is a musical thing. You are here to sing, to dance, to play. But we have been taught that playing is frivolous, that it is only for children. But I ask you, what is the alternative? All work and no play does not just make Jack a dull boy. It makes him a nervous wreck. It makes him a tyrant. It makes him a machine. The alternative is to join the dance, to understand that your very existence is your justification. You do not need permission to be. You do not need to earn the right to be here. You are here because you are here, just as a rose is red because it is a rose. So how does one live this way? You don't try. Trying is the energy of the separate ego, the energy of seriousness. You simply begin to notice. You notice the moments when you are already not trying. The moment you are captivated by a piece of music and forget yourself. The moment you are so absorbed in a conversation that time stops. The moment you are walking in nature and your endless internal chatter simply ceases. In those moments, you are there. You are fully present. And in that presence, there is no problem. There is only the dance. The goal is not to make those moments happen. The goal is to notice that they are always available, because the dance is always happening. Your very breathing is part of it. Your heartbeat is the drum beat. This is the great liberation. To understand that you are already free. You are already what you are seeking. You are not going to become happy, peaceful, or enlightened at some future date. You can only be those things now. Any effort to become something is a rejection of what you already are, which is the energy of the cosmos. This does not mean you become passive. Quite the opposite. When you are not wasting energy defending an idea of yourself, you have immense energy available for life. You can act with tremendous efficiency and compassion, because your action is not about you. It is about the situation itself. It is the universe responding to itself. You become like the Zen archer, who does not shoot the arrow. It shoots. There is no arrogant archer separate from the bow, the arrow, and the target. There is only the one event, the shooting. This is action without strain. This is wu-wei. And so the call to action is not a call to do something new. It is a call to see something you have been overlooking. It is a call to trust. To trust yourself, to trust your own nature, and the nature of which you are a part. Yes, this is a risk. Life will sometimes let you down with a wallop. But the alternative, the life of total mistrust, of control, of constant surveillance of yourself and the world, that is not a life at all. That is a prison of your own making. The call is to let go, to join the dance that has been going on for billions of years, to sing the song that is already singing itself through you. You are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. You are under no obligation to be serious. You are under no obligation to justify your existence. Your only obligation, if there is one, is to be true to the deepest truth of your being, that you are a unique, irreplaceable, and temporary expression of the whole universe. And the universe is not serious. It is playful. It is joyful. It is a great cosmic game of hide and seek, where it is both the hider and the seeker. So, go on, play, experiment, be foolish, be magnificent, fail gloriously, succeed lightly, love, lose, feel it all. But whatever you do, don't miss the show by being too busy looking for the meaning behind it. The meaning is in the music. The meaning is in the dance. And you are the music. You are the dance.
There is a strange feeling that follows us through life, even when we seem to have all the things we once wished for. You might notice it on quiet evenings, when everything is finally still, the bills are paid, the kitchen is clean, the lights are soft, and yet something inside you whispers, there must be more. It is not greed, not exactly. It is an ache, an almost sacred restlessness, as if the mind refuses to believe that satisfaction could ever be simple. We are taught from childhood that money is the measure of safety, that to be rich is to be free. But the odd thing is that very few people who are surrounded by abundance ever truly feel free. They are anxious about losing it, suspicious of those who want it, and haunted by the idea that it might one day stop flowing. So even when the river of wealth runs wide, they still feel thirsty. You see, money is not a thing we hold. It is a story we tell. A story about control, about certainty, about being on the right side of fate, but the story keeps changing, and we keep rewriting it. One day, you tell yourself that if you could only earn a little more, you'd finally relax. The next, you have more, and you find new ways to be tense. You upgrade the dream, not because you need to, but because you no longer know how to stop chasing. This is the subtle tragedy of modern life. You can have comfort without peace. You can have wealth without trust. You can have options and still be trapped. And you can spend your entire existence trying to feel what cannot be bought, the quiet assurance that you are already complete. It is curious that the richer a society becomes, the less satisfied its people seem to feel. We accumulate things faster than we can enjoy them. We rush to consume experiences like travelers who are afraid their passports will expire. Even leisure becomes a form of work. We must prove that we are happy, prove that we are fulfilled, prove that our success was not a mistake. And yet, the old problem persists. The feeling of lack. A man who owns a house may still lie awake, worrying about losing it. A woman who finally earns her dream income may suddenly fear that it won't be enough next year. It is never the numbers in the bank that trouble us. It is the belief that we are still incomplete, that someone, somewhere, is ahead. But what does it mean to be rich? Is it to have more than others? Or is it to need less? You can only feel wealth by contrast. If everyone had 1 million, no one would feel rich. If no one had a home, even a single room would feel like a palace. Our sense of abundance is not determined by possession, but by perception, by the game of comparison we unconsciously play every day. The trouble with comparison is that it never ends. There will always be someone who has gone farther, who has achieved sooner, who seems to float through life with less friction than you. But you never see the whole story. You see the highlight reel, the house, the smile, the success, not the anxiety behind it. And so we keep reaching, we keep pushing, we keep moving the goalpost just beyond the horizon, because stopping feels dangerous, almost shameful, as though contentment were a kind of failure. But you cannot chase peace and catch it. You can only allow it. Money is the same. The more you treat it as something to trap, the faster it runs from you. Because money, like life itself, moves in cycles. It flows in, it flows out, it circulates. And when you grip it too tightly, you stop its rhythm. If you truly look, you'll notice that every major financial decision you've ever made was not just about money, it was about what money symbolized. Security, recognition, freedom, love, control. Every purchase, every job, every dream of someday was a coded way of saying, I want to feel safe. But the great paradox is that the moment you tie your safety to something that can fluctuate, you guarantee your insecurity. This is why even wealthy people rarely feel rich. They have built their peace on sand. The market shifts, the company falters, the economy trembles, and the heart trembles with it. But what if you discovered that the sense of richness you're longing for has nothing to do with the balance in your account and everything to do with your relationship to enoughness? Enough is a quiet word. It does not shout like success or sparkle like wealth. It whispers. It says, you may stop now. But the modern mind is deaf to that whisper, because stopping looks too much like losing. We have confused contentment with complacency. Yet the only way to ever feel truly rich is to recognize that you already possess the only wealth that matters, the capacity to be here now without needing the next thing to make it worthwhile. You may have noticed that the richest moments of your life were never the most expensive ones. They were the mornings when the sun touched your window at just the right angle, the laughter that cost nothing, the meal that tasted better because you had someone to share it with. These are not moments of scarcity. They are proof that wealth was never the issue. Attention was. Attention is the new currency of our age. What you give your focus to, you empower. If your attention is constantly orbiting what's missing, then even a fortune will feel fragile. But if your attention settles into what is already here, then even the simplest life will feel abundant. We often think money will finally make us present, that once the bills are gone, the debt erased, the worry silenced, then we will relax. But life has a strange sense of humor. It gives you peace the moment you stop waiting for peace to be purchased. The moment you stop making contentment conditional on external gain, you realize that freedom was never hiding in the bank. It was hiding in your breath. It is a peculiar madness to believe that the value of life depends on the size of one's savings. Yet most people spend their best years trading time, the one thing they can never recover, for figures that exist only as digital ghosts on a screen. The irony is exquisite. We sacrifice the living moment for symbols of potential moments. You do not live in the future that your money promises. You live here, in this pulse, in this breath, and when that breath is over, you cannot spend what you have stored. But the culture around us whispers endlessly, you must prepare, you must accumulate, you must secure yourself. We build whole identities on this premise. The worker becomes his salary, the entrepreneur becomes her valuation, the artist becomes the market's approval, and in the process, we forget the original reason we sought wealth in the first place, to be free to live. Freedom cannot be bought. It is a realization, not a transaction. You may have noticed that those who spend their lives chasing financial freedom rarely find it, because the chase becomes the prison. The moment they reach one target, another appears. They're like sailors who keep moving the island on the map, always rowing toward a shore that never existed. To understand this, you must first see that money is not evil, nor is it sacred. It is neutral, pure energy, pure potential. It becomes poison only when you project your fears and hopes upon it. When you treat it as the medicine for every insecurity, it amplifies the sickness. But when you treat it as a tool, a rhythm, a movement of life itself, it begins to flow naturally again. Most people do not have a money problem, they have a meaning problem. They believe that by accumulating enough, they will one day escape uncertainty. But uncertainty is not an obstacle, it is the very texture of existence. You cannot buy your way out of it. You can only dance with it. Think of the ocean. The waves rise and fall. No one wave lasts forever, yet the ocean remains whole. Money is like that. It rises and falls in the tides of your life. Some seasons bring abundance, others require trust, but both are necessary for the rhythm to stay alive. You cannot have the flow without the ebb. Yet our minds resist this natural movement. We want to lock the river in a vault. We build dams of worry, hoarding, and fear, and then we wonder why we no longer feel the joy of its movement. You might feel it too, that heavy sense that you can never rest, because if you rest, the flow will stop. But it doesn't. It only stops when you stop trusting it. There are people who have very little, yet move through life with quiet confidence. Their peace is not because they are ignorant of difficulty, but because they are intimate with it. They have learned that wealth does not guarantee security any more than poverty guarantees despair. What matters is the relationship not between you and your money, but between you and your own sense of enoughness. You may have enough and still feel poor because you have not learned to feel what you already possess. The mind is trained to seek, not to notice. It treats satisfaction as a sign to move the target farther. That is why the feeling of richness cannot arise from what you own. It arises from how deeply you allow yourself to be owned by this present moment. And that is the great secret. You cannot hold wealth, but wealth can hold you when you stop demanding that it make you feel safe. When you stop trying to make money your savior, you begin to see that life has already been carrying you all along. If you look closely, every moment of your life has been financed by something far deeper than currency, the sheer generosity of existence itself. The sunlight that costs nothing, the breath that renews itself, the people who appear when you least expect it. These are not transactions, they are testaments that abundance has always been the ground beneath your feet. The reason you never feel rich is not that you lack something material, but that you have mistaken the symbol of wealth for the experience of it. And until that illusion is seen through, you could fill every account you own and still wake in the night wondering what's missing. So, pause for a moment. Feel the air moving in and out. Notice that it does not charge rent for entry. Notice that the stars still shine whether your stocks go up or down. Notice that life, in its strange and quiet way, has never stopped providing what is essential. Perhaps that is where real richness begins, in remembering that you were never meant to feel rich by having more, but by realizing that you are already part of something that cannot be owned. At some point, we must ask ourselves what it truly means to have enough. The question sounds simple, almost childish, but it hides the key to our deepest confusion. Enough is not a number, it is a relationship. You cannot measure it with a calculator because it depends on something that cannot be counted, the quality of your awareness. You see, life has never been about accumulation. It has always been about participation. When you are fully participating in the dance of existence, wealth is irrelevant. Whether you are sitting in a palace or beneath a tree, the sense of completeness comes from the same place, the unbroken presence of consciousness itself. But when you forget that, when you identify only with the fragments you can own or display, you feel divided from life, and the divided self can never feel rich. Consider for a moment how the idea of money arose. Once, there was only exchange. A fisherman traded his catch for the farmer's grain. The potter gave a bowl for a loaf of bread. It was a rhythm of giving and receiving, balanced by trust. But as soon as we invented symbolic wealth, the symbol became more important than the exchange. The coin replaced the conversation. The note replaced the handshake. We began to value not the act of giving, but the accumulation of the tokens that represented it. And so humanity found itself in an odd paradox. We created money to make life easier, but then made life revolve around money. We built systems that reward hoarding instead of sharing, growth instead of sufficiency, profit instead of peace. And yet the truth has not changed. You cannot take a single cent with you when you go. The wealth that truly matters is the kind you can still feel when everything else is gone. When you look around, you may notice that people often confuse abundance with excess. Abundance is the experience of fullness. Excess is the refusal to stop. Abundance nourishes, excess intoxicates. One expands your awareness, the other narrows it until you can no longer taste what you consume. A man in a small home can live abundantly if his heart is spacious. A man in a mansion can live in poverty if his soul is cramped by fear. But the problem is not greed, not really. It is confusion. We have mistaken the visible symbols of wealth for the invisible feeling of wholeness they were meant to point toward. And so we keep grasping for more, like a person trying to hold sunlight in their hands. Real richness begins the moment you stop trying to store light and start learning to see it. To feel rich is to recognize that the miracle is not that you possess things, but that things exist at all. That you are here, breathing, conscious, surrounded by textures and sounds and colors that no amount of currency could ever recreate. Look closely at the smallest details, the way the steam curls from your morning tea, the quiet rhythm of your footsteps on the floor, the warmth of someone's voice saying your name. These are not luxuries. These are wealth, but because we are taught to think of life as a ledger, we keep translating these moments into costs and gains. How much did it take? What did I earn? What did I lose? As long as the mind is caught in that arithmetic, it cannot see the truth that the value of a moment is not in what it costs, but in how deeply it is lived. You can spend your entire life chasing security and die without ever feeling safe, or you can discover here and now that safety is not the absence of risk, but the willingness to be present with it. This is why the truly wealthy are not those who have conquered uncertainty, but those who have made peace with it. They understand that life is not meant to be controlled, but experienced. The richest people in spirit are not those who hold everything tightly, but those who have learned to let everything go again and again without losing the capacity to trust. There is a freedom that appears only when you no longer demand that the world guarantee you anything. It is the freedom of being able to breathe without bargaining. The freedom of knowing that your worth does not rise and fall with the market or with the approval of others. When you realize this, something subtle shifts. The pursuit of wealth turns inward. You begin to invest, not in possessions, but in perception. You become interested in the quality of your attention, how present you are when you speak, how open you are when you listen, how generous you are when you act. That is the real portfolio of the spirit. You see, all along, life has been offering you dividends of awareness. Every challenge, every failure, every success, all of it has been teaching you how to wake up. But you cannot cash those lessons in a bank. Their value is in their transformation. And so the question is not how to make more, but how to mean more. How to let your actions carry the weight of awareness. How to allow even the simplest gesture, a smile, a meal, a moment of silence, to become a declaration of gratitude for the wealth that is already surrounding you. People often ask, but what about ambition? Should I not strive? Of course you should strive, but know what you are striving for. There is nothing wrong with earning money, creating art, or building a company. What matters is whether your work is an expression of love or a performance of fear. When it comes from love, it expands you. When it comes from fear, it drains you. A man who works from love is not working for security. He is working because he is alive. He moves with the current of life instead of against it. He understands that what he creates is not for possession, but participation. The reward is not the result, but the doing. And when you truly work in that spirit, money ceases to be an obsession and becomes a natural byproduct of energy well spent. It flows to you not as proof of worth, but as a reflection of alignment. The difficulty, of course, is that we are surrounded by noise, a culture built on convincing us that we are always one purchase away from happiness. Every advertisement whispers the same sermon. You are not enough, but we can sell you the missing piece. And because we are tired, uncertain, and hungry for relief, we believe it. We keep feeding a hunger that cannot be satisfied, because it is not physical, it is spiritual. To be spiritually hungry is not wrong. It is the first step toward awakening. But to confuse spiritual hunger with material lack is to wander forever. The moment you understand that what you crave is not more, but meaning, everything changes. You stop trying to fill the silence with noise or the stillness with motion. You begin to see that the discomfort of not enough is simply the invitation to meet yourself more deeply. It is not a curse, but a doorway. The moment you stop running from it, it opens. To feel rich, then, is to return to that inner stillness and find that you have never truly been poor. That the wealth you sought outside was always an echo of the abundance within. You realize that your entire life has been funded by something infinite, the same mystery that animates the trees, the rivers, the stars. It is a strange discovery to make because it dissolves the game entirely. You can still earn, still build, still plan for the future, but now you do it with lightness. You are no longer trying to prove your worth. You are simply expressing it. The anxiety of comparison fades. The compulsion to outdo disappears. What remains is participation, a pure willingness to live. And when you live like that, money becomes what it was meant to be, a servant, not a master. It moves through you as easily as breath, supporting what needs to unfold, then leaving when it is time. You trust that it will return when it is needed, because you are no longer clinging to its form. You are rooted in the deeper flow beneath it, the pulse of life itself. Imagine for a moment that you were suddenly invisible to society. No one could see your possessions, your titles, or your success. What would remain of you then? That remainder, the essence that cannot be measured or marketed, that is your true wealth. Everything else is temporary. There will come a day when your last transaction is complete, your last ambition satisfied, your last coin spent. And in that moment, all that will matter is whether you have learned how to be rich in presence, whether you can meet the final silence with gratitude instead of fear. If you have lived in constant hunger for more, death will feel like theft. But if you have lived in awareness of enough, death will feel like completion. The world will always offer you reasons to worry. The market will fall, prices will rise, the future will tremble. But the one thing that cannot be shaken is the realization that wealth was never outside you. It was the consciousness through which you perceived the world. It was the gratitude that transformed necessity into blessing, repetition into ritual, ordinary life into sacredness. You are not poor because you lack things. You are poor only when you forget how to see. So, learn to see again. See the way the morning light filters through the curtain. See the faces of those you love. See the fleeting moments that slip between your plans. They are all pieces of gold, scattered freely across the day. You don't have to own them, you only have to notice them. One day, you will look back and realize that the moments you thought were small were the richest of all. that the peace you chased through decades of work was already waiting for you quietly in the pause between breaths. To feel rich is not to escape life's uncertainty, but to bow to it, to say yes to each wave as it comes, and yes again when it goes. To know that what is yours will always find its way to you, because you are already part of the same current that carries everything else. And when that realization settles in your bones, you no longer ask, "Do I have enough?" You simply whisper, "I am enough." That is where the chase ends. That is where wealth begins. There comes a moment in every human life when the very thing you depend on, the thing you've trusted since childhood, simply stops working, the mechanism of effort. You push and push, you try to hold yourself together, you devote yourself to improvement, to goals, to plans, to becoming someone you can be proud of, and one day, without warning, the whole engine seizes. Nothing responds, nothing moves. You work harder, thinking perhaps you miscalculated, perhaps you didn't give enough, perhaps you simply have to exert more force. But the more you push, the less life offers in return. It is a bewildering kind of silence. You reach out into life with both hands, and it feels as though the universe has quietly stepped back. You find yourself asking questions you thought you had outgrown. Why isn't this working? What am I missing? Why does it feel like I am doing everything and going nowhere? And beneath those questions is another one, far more frightening, but also far more honest. What if nothing I do is enough? Now, that is the moment where most people panic. They scramble. They tighten their grip. They look for new techniques, new hacks, new philosophies promising results. But all of that is simply more effort, more resistance, more of the same fuel that was already burning you out. You see, life has a very peculiar way of speaking when you're going too fast. It stops answering, not as a punishment, but as a way of getting your attention. You think effort is what moves life, but it is actually life that moves you. And when life wants you still, when it wants you quiet, when it wants you to finally hear what lies beneath the noise of your striving, it takes away the illusion of forward motion. You may interpret that as failure, but it is simply a pause, a sacred pause. You think you've been abandoned by momentum, but in truth you have only been returned to yourself. Just look at the world. Rivers do not rush every moment. Even the tides rest. The seasons linger before shifting. A tree does not strain upward each day. Growth comes in pulses, in breaths. Expansion, stillness. Expansion, stillness. But the human mind insists that stillness means something is wrong. It calls it stagnation. It calls it failure. And because the world keeps praising endless motion, you have come to believe that if you are not advancing, you are falling behind. But life is not linear. It never has been. It spirals, it circles, it pauses, it waits for the right conditions. If you look carefully at the times when nothing moved for you, you will see that they were shaping you in ways action never could. People ask, why am I trying so hard and seeing nothing? And the answer is very simple. Because the part of you doing the trying is not the part that is meant to move. There is a deeper intelligence in you, one that does not measure your worth by progress, one that does not calculate value based on effort. It is the same intelligence that grows your hair and heals your wounds and keeps your heart beating while you sleep. It does not need your effort. In fact, your effort often gets in its way. Think of someone drowning. Their instinct is to thrash, to claw at the water, to fight for control. But the harder they struggle, the faster they sink. Only when they stop fighting, when they allow themselves to float, does the water hold them up. In the same way, your effort can sometimes be the very thing pulling you under. You are trying to swim in places where you are meant to float. Now, that does not mean effort is wrong. Effort has its place. But when effort is fueled by fear, by desperation, by the need to prove something to yourself or to the world, it becomes a burden. You carry it like a weight, imagining it will deliver you to some distant shore where everything finally makes sense. But effort cannot deliver you to a place that already exists beneath your feet. There is a reason your effort led nowhere, because the direction you were forcing yourself toward was never meant for you. If the door refuses to open, it is because there is nothing for you behind it. You may not see this now. You may think all your plans were sensible and well constructed. But the universe does not organize itself according to your expectations. It organizes itself according to resonance, according to timing, according to the unfolding of things that you cannot yet see. And when you push against that unfolding, the universe does not punish you. It simply waits. It waits for the moment you stop trying to bend life into the shape you prefer. It waits for the moment you surrender your insistence that you know what is best for you. It waits for the moment you are still enough to feel the movement of life itself. Because what feels like nowhere is not the absence of direction. It is the clearing of direction, the ground being leveled, the noise being softened, so that when life finally moves you, it moves you cleanly, effortlessly, without the friction of your resistance. Many people think the universe rewards effort, but look closely. The universe rewards alignment. Effort without alignment leads nowhere. Alignment without effort leads everywhere. You may not realize it, but the version of you that was pushing so hard no longer exists. Something in you is dying. Something in you is dissolving, not to hurt you, but to make space. The life that effort built is too small for who you are becoming. And life knows this. That is why it blocked you. That is why it held your progress still. You were reaching for a future that was beneath you. Now, none of this makes the moment easier. You wake up and it feels like your mind is foggy, your energy is heavy, your enthusiasm drained. It feels like failure because you have been trained to believe that constant striving is evidence of worth. But what if worth has nothing to do with striving? What if the universe is not measuring how hard you push, but how deeply you listen? You are not stuck. You are being emptied. And emptiness is not a mistake. It is preparation. When a bowl is full of old water, you cannot pour anything new into it. When a room is crowded, no one else can enter. When a path is cluttered, nothing can pass. Life clears you out so that something that actually belongs to you can take shape. But you must be still to see it. You must let the noise of your efforts settle. The modern world has made stillness feel shameful. People ask, what are you working on? What are you building? What are you producing? But no one asks, how deeply are you listening? How fully are you here? How much of yourself is aligned with your own experience? So when your effort leads nowhere, you think you've failed, but really you are being invited to rediscover a way of living that does not rely on exhaustion, a way of living that does not sacrifice the present for the illusion of a future, a way of living that trusts that life, not effort, is the thing that moves you. You are not in the wrong place. You are at the threshold. And thresholds never look like progress. They look like pauses. The universe is not withholding motion from you. It is preparing you for the kind of motion that will not break you. And if you stay with this moment long enough, something begins to shift. Not in the world around you, but in the felt sense of your own being. You start to notice that the tension you've carried for years begins to loosen. The constant background hum of urgency fades, even if only a little. You notice that you can breathe more deeply, even though nothing in your circumstances has changed. This is how the dissolution begins. First in the body, then in the mind, and only later in the life you live. You may not recognize it as movement, because you are looking for movement in the form of results. But the universe often moves you long before you see where it is taking you. You see, effort is loud. It demands. It insists. It clenches its fists and tightens its jaw. Effort says, I must get somewhere. I must achieve something. I must become someone. Effort is the voice of the self that believes it is separate from life, responsible for controlling every outcome, and so it exhausts itself. But life is quiet. Life whispers. Life waits. Life unfolds without strain. It breathes you. It beats your heart. It digests your food without asking your permission. Life does not struggle. Life simply moves. And when your effort leads nowhere, it is usually because life is trying to teach you its rhythm. It is trying to show you that the moment you stop forcing movement, a deeper movement begins. But the mind resists this. It says, if I stop trying, everything will collapse. But what if everything is collapsing precisely because you keep trying to hold together what you have outgrown, trying to push through doors that are no longer meant to open, trying to maintain an identity that is no longer true? There are seasons in your life when you are meant to build, seasons when you are meant to strive, seasons when effort flows easily because you are aligned with the direction of life. But there are also seasons when you are meant to unravel, seasons when effort becomes impossible because something softer, something wiser is asking to be heard. When all your effort leads nowhere, you are in such a season of undoing, a season of clearing, a season of returning to the ground of yourself. You may not realize it yet, but the nowhere you fear is actually the stillness from which true direction emerges. When you look at your life through the lens of the mind, you see stagnation. But through the lens of awareness, you see gestation. Something is forming in you, something you cannot name yet. It is not ambition, it is not desire, it is not a goal. It is a different orientation altogether. A way of relating to life that is not built on effort but on presence. Most people live their lives relying on effort because they have never experienced the intelligence of presence. They don't trust stillness because they never learned to listen. They were taught that life rewards productivity. They were taught that hard work guarantees results. But if you look carefully, you will see that the moments that shaped you the most were rarely the ones you worked hardest for. They were the moments that arrived quietly, unexpectedly, without effort. You did not effort your way into meeting the most important people in your life. You did not effort your way into the moments that changed your heart, the experiences that softened you, the realizations that awakened you. Those came on their own. They came because life brought them. So when effort stops working, it is because life wants to bring you something new, something you cannot arrive at through force, something that requires you to be softer, quieter, more honest with yourself, something that comes only when the mind finally grows tired of its endless pushing and falls into silence. And this silence, uncomfortable as it may be, is not emptiness, it is spaciousness. It is the clearing where truth appears. It is in this silence that you begin to see the difference between the life you were trained to chase and the life that actually belongs to you. You start to question the motives behind your striving. Was it truly for growth? Or was it to avoid feeling unworthy? Was it truly for joy? Or was it for validation? Was it truly aligned with your nature? Or was it aligned with the expectations of others? You may discover that much of your effort was never really yours. It was inherited from fears that were never examined. It was shaped by environments that rewarded burnout. It was fueled by a misunderstanding of what makes life meaningful. When that misunderstanding dissolves, effort falls away on its own, not because you stop caring, but because you stop pretending. You stop pretending that pushing yourself beyond your limits will lead to peace. You stop pretending that success will fill the places inside you that ache. You stop pretending that effort alone can save you from the fear of not being enough. And once you stop pretending, you can finally rest. This rest is not laziness. It is not giving up. It is not weakness. It is a return to sanity. It is a return to alignment. It is the moment when you stop swimming against the current of your own life. From the outside, it may look like nothing is happening, but inside, the landscape is changing. Your nervous system begins to unwind. Your thoughts begin to slow. Your breath deepens. The frantic momentum that once carried you begins to dissolve. You are not failing. You are recalibrating. And in this recalibration, you start to notice things you were too busy to see before. The texture of your own awareness, the subtle ways your intuition speaks, the places in your body that have been tight for years, the dreams you abandoned without even realizing you had, the person you became while trying to become someone else. All of this begins to surface. It is not chaos, it is clarity. The truth is that effort was distracting you from yourself. It kept you busy, occupied, forward-focused. It kept you from feeling the deeper longing within you, the longing to simply be, the longing to return to a life that is not constantly demanding something from you, the longing to let life move you instead of trying to drag life behind you. And so, effort stops working. Not because you are unworthy, not because you are unprepared, but because you are being guided into a different mode of living, one where effort is no longer your identity, one where your direction comes from a quiet inner knowing rather than external pressure. This is why the universe so often leads people into these moments of nowhere, not to punish them, but to soften them, not to stop their life, but to redirect it, not to take away their control, but to remind them that they never needed control to begin with. When you reach the point where effort collapses, you begin to encounter the truth that effort was never the real source of your growth. Growth happened in the moments when you were open, when you surrendered, when you let yourself be touched by something deeper than your goals. And that is where you are now, at the threshold between effort and awareness, between striving and being, between noise and silence, between the life you tried to control and the life you are meant to live. If you can allow yourself to rest here, even for a moment, you will begin to feel the faint stirrings of a new movement. It does not rush, it does not demand, it does not require you to force anything. It simply invites you to listen, and in that listening, you will discover that nowhere is not a dead end. It is a doorway, the doorway through which every real change in your life has ever entered. There is a strange and wonderful thing that happens when you begin to trust the doorway that looks like nowhere. At first you approach it cautiously, still believing that perhaps you are making some terrible mistake by allowing your effort to rest. You have been trained for so long to equate movement with meaning that stillness feels like a kind of death. But as you linger there, the mind softens, the body loosens, and the deeper intelligence within you begins to rise like something that has been waiting in the dark for years. It rises slowly, quietly, in the same way dawn approaches the horizon. It does not announce itself, it simply brightens. It reveals. And what it reveals is the space beneath your striving, the part of you that was never exhausted to begin with. There is an awareness in you that has watched your entire life unfold. It has observed your victories and your failures, your moments of clarity and your moments of confusion, your seasons of abundance and your seasons of collapse. It has never been tired because it has never been the one doing the striving. It has only been witnessing. When you arrive in this space, the first thing you feel is relief. Not the kind of relief that comes from solving a problem, but the kind that comes from no longer needing to solve it. You realize that the problem was never your lack of effort, but your reliance on effort. You had mistaken force for intelligence, striving for direction, exhaustion for achievement. And the moment you recognize this, a great exhale moves through your entire being. Life becomes softer. The air feels different. You begin to sense that you are not trudging through a hostile universe, but participating in a movement that has always been supporting you, even when you were resisting it. This is the first quiet shift, the recognition that you are not lost. You were simply moving too quickly to feel the hands that were guiding you. You may think this realization brings immediate peace, but peace is not the first gift. The first gift is honesty, a profound honesty that rises from your chest like a tide that can no longer be pushed back. You begin to see the truth of your exhaustion, the truth of your longing, the truth of the life you have been carrying on your shoulders. And as these truths surface, they do not hurt you, they free you. You realize you have been exhausting yourself with expectations that were never aligned with your nature. You realize you have been chasing a version of yourself that was shaped more by fear than by authenticity. You realize that much of your striving came from the belief that you needed to become extraordinary, to be worthy of rest, of love, of belonging. And when this breaks open inside you, something remarkable happens. You stop running, not because you have nowhere left to go, but because you finally see that the running never brought you closer to anything real. It only brought you deeper into the maze of your own mind, a maze filled with ideals, standards, comparisons, imagined futures, and old wounds disguised as ambition. You were not navigating life. You were navigating your conditioning. And conditioning does not lead forward. It only loops. This is why effort led nowhere. Because you were running in circles that only felt like progress. The universe is too kind to let you waste your life in a maze. So it closed the doors that kept you spinning. It exhausted the strategies that no longer served you. It silenced the paths that were fueled by fear, not to punish you, but to liberate you. And liberation begins with stillness. Once you allow this stillness, even reluctantly, life begins to reorganize you from the inside out. It starts gently, like a whisper in the back of your awareness. You notice you are less interested in proving yourself. You notice you are less reactive to the pressures around you. You notice that the urge to force things weakens. You begin to see that you don't need to control life for life to move. It is here that you begin to learn the art of allowing. Allowing does not mean passivity. It does not mean giving up. It means listening. It means recognizing that every movement in life has a rhythm, and that rhythm cannot be rushed. If you push a seed too quickly, it dies. If you force a flower open, it collapses. If you try to make the ocean still, it churns. The nature of things must be honored, and you are part of nature. So when your effort leads nowhere, it is often because you were pushing yourself beyond the rhythm of your own becoming. You were demanding a harvest in the middle of winter. You were insisting on clarity during a season meant for undoing. You were looking for answers in a moment meant for silence. Life knows the rhythm even when you do not. And this is why surrender becomes the second gift. Not surrender to failure, but surrender to the deeper intelligence that is orchestrating your life. A surrender that feels less like giving up and more like being carried. As you settle into this surrender, a new form of strength emerges in you. Not the strength of tension, but the strength of openness. Not the strength of endurance, but the strength of awareness. You begin to notice that you can hold your experience more fully without collapsing under it. You realize that life has always been easier when you are not clutching at it. The mind may protest, saying you must be vigilant, you must plan, you must control, you must do something. But you begin to see that much of what the mind calls control is simply fear wearing a helpful mask. Control has exhausted you for years. Control has kept you in the maze. Control has convinced you that the world is unpredictable and that your safety depends on constant effort. But safety does not come from control. Safety comes from trust, from awareness, from presence, from the understanding that you are not navigating life alone. Life is navigating you. As this understanding deepens, your relationship with yourself changes in subtle but powerful ways. You no longer judge yourself for being tired. You no longer shame yourself for not knowing the next step. You no longer criticize yourself for pausing. Instead, you begin to treat yourself with the gentleness that life has been trying to teach you. You become less interested in rushing, less interested in proving, less interested in perfection, more interested in honesty, more interested in ease, more interested in alignment. This is the beginning of authentic living. You start to notice what drains you and what nourishes you. You start to choose rest without guilt. You start to slow down enough to hear your own intuition, which has been speaking to you all these years, but could not be heard over the noise of your effort. It is in this slowing that life begins to reveal its next direction. Not through pressure, but through pull. Not through force, but through resonance. You feel drawn to things that once seemed unimportant. You find clarity in moments that once felt quiet. You notice openings that were invisible when you were rushing past them. This is how life guides you, gently, subtly, consistently, and as you follow this pull, something miraculous begins to happen. The movement you have been waiting for returns, but it does not come with strain, it comes with grace. Suddenly the path that once felt blocked begins to open. Opportunities that once seemed impossible appear naturally. People who resonate with your new way of being begin to enter your life. Conversations align. Timing aligns. Energy aligns. Movement returns. Not because you forced it, but because you became aligned with it. Your life begins to expand again, but now from the inside out, you are not chasing the world, you are meeting it. You begin to realize that the pauses in your life were not interruptions, they were recalibrations. They were the universe adjusting your direction. They were the moments when life was saving you from futures that did not belong to you. Every period where effort led nowhere was a moment where you were being redirected toward a place where effort would be unnecessary. Because alignment does not require force. It requires presence. You may think you lost time in those seasons, but what you lost was not time. What you lost was the illusion that you could control your way into peace, and what you gained was far greater. You gained the ability to listen. You gained the capacity to feel. You gained the clarity to recognize what is truly meant for you. When you look back, you will see that the times when your effort failed were the very times when your life was protecting you from paths you were forcing yourself into, protecting you from versions of yourself you no longer needed to become, protecting you from directions that would have drained you even further. You were not failing, you were being held, and now you stand in a different kind of space. A space where life no longer feels like something you must conquer, but something you can participate in. A space where your worth is not tied to productivity. A space where you can meet yourself without judgment. A space where you can rest without apology. From this space, effort becomes something new. It becomes an expression of alignment rather than a compensation for fear. You act when moved, not when pressured. You move when guided, not when panicked. You work from fullness, not from depletion. Life begins to feel lighter, more fluid, more honest. It becomes less about achieving and more about unfolding, less about getting somewhere and more about being here. The weight you carried for years lifts, not because you accomplished something extraordinary, but because you stopped arguing with the rhythm of your own becoming. When all your effort leads nowhere, it is because you are being led somewhere deeper, somewhere quieter, somewhere more real, somewhere your mind could not lead you because your mind is trained to repeat the past. Awareness is what moves you into the future. This is the gift hidden inside exhaustion, the return to what has always been guiding you, the return to the intelligence that does not strain, the return to the part of you that is already whole. You were never meant to live your life struggling upstream. You were meant to flow with the current of your own truth. You were meant to follow the quiet pull of the life that is aligned with your nature. You were meant to allow what is real to rise and allow what is false to fall away. You have spent so long trying to become someone worthy, not realizing that the worthiness was already there beneath the layers of effort. And when effort collapses, you are finally able to feel it. This is why life stops you. This is why effort fails. This is why you find yourself in seasons of stillness. Not because you are unworthy of movement, but because you are being prepared for a different kind of movement. A movement that does not exhaust you but expresses you. A movement that does not pull you away from yourself but brings you deeper into the heart of your own life. The greatest transformation of your life will not come from striving, it will come from listening. And now, after everything has collapsed, after all the doors have refused to open, after the exhaustion has stripped you bare, you are finally quiet enough to hear. And what you hear is this: you were never meant to force your way through life. You were meant to fall into alignment with it. And once you do, everything that once felt unreachable begins to unfold naturally. Not because you worked harder, but because you stopped resisting the truth of who you are. This is what happens when all your effort leads nowhere. It is the beginning of the life that is actually yours.
Have you ever sat down, truly quiet, and let your mind drift back to old moments' words blurted out in anger, hasty actions you later wished you could pull back like a thread from a tapestry? We all have such scars, jagged fragments of memory lying dormant in the dark corners of the soul. And then, from the vantage point of today, with all its new light, with a wisdom more seasoned, you look back at your former self, as if that person should have known everything you know now. But please, pause for a moment. Imagine scolding a 3-year-old for not solving a quadratic equation. Strangely, we often do the same to ourselves. That person from the past, with eyes still foggy, a heart still tender, with knowledge just enough to take the next step, tried their best within their limits. Not by your standards now, but by their own at the time. Life, you see, is not a test graded from on high. It's more like a dance rehearsal in the dark, where every misstep is part of learning balance. Mistakes are not sins. They are off-key notes in the symphony taking shape. If you deny them, you deny the very path that brought you here. Forgiving yourself, therefore, is not a solemn ritual, not a resounding declaration in a church. It's just a gentler gaze into the past. Instead of whipping the horse that ran its hardest, you stroke it and whisper. You did it with what you had. Imagine carrying a backpack full of stones. Each stone is a painful memory, a word you wish you'd never said, an action you want to erase. You trudge through the years, the pack growing heavier, your back more bent. But one day, you realize those stones are no longer on the road ahead. They're just images in your mind, ones you voluntarily clung to. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. Letting go is stopping the self-torment for a version that's dead. The person who said those hurtful words no longer lives. The only one still imprisoned in the jail of memory is you, the current version, still locking the door yourself. Forgiveness is unlocking. Not to flee the past, but to step through it without stumbling. You don't have to love everything that happened. You just need to stop warring with it. Warring with the past is like fighting your shadow on the wall. The more you strike, the larger and more terrifying it grows. And the miracle is, when you stop condemning yourself, you start hearing your own laughter from the very beginning. The laughter of a child learning to ride a bike, falling flat, then getting up, with no grudge against the ground. That child is still inside you. Forgiveness is giving it room to breathe. But forgiveness doesn't stop at your own doorstep. It opens a larger door to the world outside. Because if you can look at yourself with eyes of compassion, you'll begin to look at others with the same eyes. When someone hurts you with sharp words, careless actions, you often react instantly. Why did they do this to me? The question is valid, but not deep enough. Go one step further. Where did they learn to hurt? Every behavior has roots. No one is born knowing how to cause pain. They learn it from old wounds, from words hurled at them when they were small, from unnamed fears. The man roaring in anger might be the boy who once cowered in a corner while parents fought. The cold woman might be the girl abandoned without explanation. Understanding this doesn't mean you must embrace every toxic behavior. Understanding is so you don't carry the flame of anger in your heart. You can walk away, set boundaries, but you don't need to plant more seeds of resentment in already barren soil. Forgiving the world, therefore, is not accepting every injustice. It's refusing to join the spiral of retaliation. It's saying, enough. The chain of pain stops with me. And when you do that, you'll realize a simple yet profound truth. Forgiveness is not a gift you give to others. It's a gift you give yourself. It's how you reclaim space for your heart to beat for joy instead of burden. Most of us are taught that intelligence is knowing a lot, calculating quickly, winning arguments, or remembering the exact date of a battle 300 years ago. That's the intelligence of books, report cards, shiny trophies on a shelf. But there's another kind of intelligence, quieter, deeper, far rarer. It's not measured by scores or shown in sharp words. It's the ability to step into another's inner world as if it were your own home, sit by their fireplace, and feel the warmth or cold they're living in. This wisdom needs no degree. It just requires setting aside the ego, screaming, "I'm right," to listen to another story. When someone insults you, the first reaction is often to build a towering defensive wall. They're wrong. I'm right. They deserve punishment. That wall feels safe for a moment, but it also makes you a prisoner of your own anger. Now try another way. Imagine watching a play. The villain struts out, growling, flailing arms. The audience might boo, throw tomatoes. But you, if you're the director, you know that actor has rehearsed this role since childhood. He learned to growl from a father who growled at him. He learned to flail from punches that landed in his youth. The role isn't his essence. It's the costume he wears because he was never taught to remove it. Forgiveness begins when you stop throwing tomatoes and quietly step onto the stage, looking into the trembling eyes behind the fierce mask. You don't have to agree with the role. You just need to see that the actor is human, once a child who cried. This sounds hard because we're used to snap judgments. Judgment is like fast food, cheap, convenient, instantly filling. Understanding a person is like cooking from scratch, selecting ingredients, washing, slow simmering, waiting. It takes time, effort, and sometimes you taste bitterness before the dish is done. But in that process, you nurture something fast food can never give, the survival of your own heart. Try a small exercise. Next time someone hurts you, instead of retaliating, take 3 minutes, just 3, to imagine their life. Picture them at 5, 10, 20. What words did they hear? Who did they lose? How did they learn to protect themselves? You don't need to be perfectly accurate. You just need to crack open a small gap in your defensive wall for light to slip through. Those 3 minutes won't change the other person, but they'll change you. They turn you from a judge on a high seat into a quiet companion on a dusty road. And strangely, when you stop judging, you find yourself forgiven by yourself. Now go further. Look at larger conflicts between nations, groups, opposing ideologies. We call each other enemies, demons, threats. But if you zoom out really far, what do you see? A tiny planet hanging in space, with 7 billion people crammed onto it, each carrying their own story, each believing their story is the only truth. From that height, borders vanish, ethnicities vanish. All that remains are children raised in different homes, learning different lessons, now shouting in each other's faces because no one will listen. Forgiving the world isn't a fantasy of overnight peace. It's refusing to keep throwing stones into the vortex of violence. Every time you choose understanding over condemnation, you pull one brick from the wall of hatred humanity has built for thousands of years. The wall may not collapse immediately, but it weakens a little. And that's a start. Some will say, but if I forgive, won't they take advantage? A fair question. Forgiveness isn't foolishness. You can forgive a wild beast, but don't need to open its cage to be torn apart. Forgiveness is the heart's work. Boundaries are the mind's. They don't contradict. They complement. Think of the ocean. Waves may rage, crash against rocks, shatter, but deep below, the ocean remains calm. Forgiveness is that depth. It doesn't stop waves from rising. Life will still have conflict, pain, but it keeps you from being swept away. And when you live from that depth, you'll notice something strange. Others start to change when they no longer have to defend against you. Not always, but sometimes a single non-judgmental glance is enough to melt years of ice. Pain has a strange quality. It never fully dies, it just reincarnates. A child harshly scolded in a dark kitchen may grow up and repeat those exact words to their own child on a sunny afternoon. A boy abandoned on a street corner may become a man who coldly pushes his wife away when she needs an embrace most. Pain doesn't vanish. It dons new clothes, changes its voice, and continues its journey across generations. You can call it karma, the cycle of hurt, or simply life. The name doesn't matter. What matters is recognizing. If no one stops, the chain drags on forever. A toxic word from 1950 may still echo in a child's trembling voice in 2025. Imagine holding a red-hot rope at one end. The other, the one who hurt you, grips the far end. You think you're holding tight to punish them, but your hand is the one burning. Forgiveness is letting go. Not to drop the rope and let it keep burning, but to extinguish the flame before it reaches the next hand. Many misunderstand forgiveness as letting it slide. No, forgiveness is stopping the transmission. It's the moment you say, the pain ends here. I won't turn it into action, words, or new wounds. Look at your family. Is there a phrase repeated from grandparents to grandchildren? Men don't cry. Girls must be good. Money is everything. Those aren't just words. They're stones thrown from generation to generation, each toss adding a new crack. Forgiveness is picking up the stone, examining it closely, then setting it down instead of hurling it. You don't have to like the stone. You just need to stop making it fly. Some ask, but without punishment, how is justice served? Justice and forgiveness aren't enemies. Justice is the domain of law, society, natural consequences. Forgiveness is the heart's domain. A judge can sentence prison, but only you decide whether to carry that prison in your heart for life. Think of a garden. Weeds grow because the soil was neglected, seeds blown in from other gardens. Uprooting weeds is necessary, but if you yank in anger, you may harm the flowers growing beside them. Forgiveness is pulling weeds with gentle hands, leaving clean soil for new seeds. And what are those new seeds? Unconditional kindness. The apology you give your child, though you swore never to bow. The hug you offer your partner, though you were taught hugs are weakness. Every kind act is a shovel breaking the old chain. But don't expect the chain to snap instantly. It's been woven for thousands of years. One person stopping isn't enough to save the world, but it's enough to save themselves and those closest. A mother who chooses not to yell, though she was yelled at. A father who chooses to listen, though his grandfather said, men don't need words. Those moments are small, but they're the first cracks in a thick wall of hatred. There's an old story. A Zen master passes a burning village. Villagers shout, "Master, save us." He looks around, sees a child crying beside their mother's body. He picks up the child, places them in another woman's arms, and walks on. The villagers rage. "You didn't save the whole village?" The master replies, "I just saved the world. For if this child grew up in hatred, they would burn 1,000 more villages." Forgiveness is like that. It doesn't need to be grand. It just needs to be in the right place. A handshake instead of a punch. An I understand instead of you're wrong. A minute of silence instead of 10 minutes of arguing. Those moments are drops, cooling the burning rope. And as you practice forgiveness, you'll discover a paradox. The first healed isn't the hurter, but you. Resentment is like acid. It corrodes the container before the contents. Forgiveness is a new container. But don't rush. Forgiveness isn't a sprint. Sometimes you forgive today, and tomorrow resentment sprouts like weeds after rain. That's normal. Life is a garden, not a museum. Weeds will regrow. You'll pull them again. Each pull leaves the soil a little cleaner. And one day, you'll stand in a garden free of weeds. Not because they vanished forever, but because you've learned to pull them before they become a forest. Eventually, you'll realize forgiveness is no longer something you do. It becomes how you are. Like breathing, you don't remind your lungs to contract and expand. They know. Forgiveness is the same. Once it's in your bones, you don't sit, close your eyes, chant, "I forgive" like a ritual. You just live. And forgiveness flows from there, quiet as an underground stream, nourishing a field. Imagine standing by a river at dawn. The water is mirror still, reflecting a misty sky. Suddenly a stone drops, ripples spread, push, overlap. That's the moment someone hurts you. The natural reaction is to pick another stone and throw back, then another, until the river is a storm. But if you learn to stand still, just stand still, what happens? The ripples still spread, still push, but gradually weaken, dissolve, and the surface flattens again. not because you erased the first stone, but because you didn't fuel it. Forgiveness is that stillness, not helplessness, but the strength of one who knows every wave passes. And once you're used to stillness, you'll notice something strange. Stones others throw at you no longer rock you. They still fall, still ripple, but the waves don't reach your neck. You've learned to float. Some ask, how do I know I've truly forgiven? The answer is almost absurdly simple. You know when you no longer need to know. When the memory of an old wound arises and your heart doesn't clench. When their name is spoken and your mouth isn't bitter. When you can wish them well, not with hollow words, but with sincere silence in your heart, then you've forgiven. But don't seek that sign like a medal. Forgiveness isn't a destination, it's the path. Some days you walk fast, some days you rest under a tree. Some days you think you've arrived, then a cold wind blows and you're back at the start. It's all part of the journey. Remember, you don't forgive to become a saint. You forgive to become human. The real human, not the version caged in resentment's glass. The human who can laugh loudly without fear of cracking, cry without fear of drowning, love without fear of betrayal. And when you live from there, the world is no longer a battlefield. It's a classroom. Everyone you meet is a teacher in disguise. The grumpy vendor teaches patience. The driver who cuts you off teaches letting go. The ex teaches that love isn't possession. Every lesson hurts, but every lesson opens. Another story. An old man sits by a lake, tossing pebbles one by one. His grandson asks, "What are you doing?" He replies, "Each pebble is a grudge. When it sinks, I lighten a little." The boy picks a big pebble, hurls it hard. Waves splash wildly. The old man smiles. See? Throw hard, big waves. Throw gently, small waves. But sooner or later, the pebble sinks. The question is whether you keep picking new pebbles. Forgiveness is stopping the picking of new pebbles. Not because the world runs out of pebbles, but because you've learned to walk barefoot without pain. And then, on an ordinary day, you'll realize you no longer distinguish forgiving myself from forgiving others. The boundary dissolves. You see that every mistake, every hurt, every darkness is a low note in the same melody. Without low notes, how can there be high? Without night, how can there be stars? This is where masters speak of sudden enlightenment, but don't wait for thunder or lightning. Enlightenment often comes quietly, like realizing you've forgotten your watch long ago. You no longer forgive, because there's nothing left to forgive. Only a gentle emptiness remains, where love grows like grass after rain. You don't need to believe in gods to live from there. You just need to believe the obvious truth. We're all children learning to walk in the dark, bumping walls, crying, then standing up. Some cry louder, some hide tears better, but all are learning. And when you see that clearly, you'll smile at yourself, at the stranger on the bus, at the one who hurt you deepest. That smile isn't condescension from above. It's the smile of recognition. Oh, we're on the same team. Forgiveness, in the end, is coming home. Home isn't a place without pain. Home is where pain no longer rules. Home is where you can fall without fear of exile, cry without fear of mockery, love without fear of rejection. So forgive, not tomorrow, not when you're ready. Forgive right now, in every breath,